welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Andy McNamara once again.
Hello.
And then two idiots. We have Joe staring Juba over there.
I can't believe I was left out of the idiot march. I can't believe that.
And then we have old Cork Jeffster, Jeff Cork himself.
Idiot in chief.
That's right. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
We got a good show. We're talking Final Fantasy 15 news. Remember when that game isn't out yet?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been a few years.
Yeah, they're taking this free time. We're going to talk all about the big announcements, talking about living in a post-VR world with Oculus Rift out now. Andy's been immersed in a virtual world all week, basically. And then talking a little bit about like Adr1ft specifically with Jeff Cork.
Yes.
And then we are going to be talking a little bit about Miitomo, Nintendo's first mobile app. I played a little bit this morning. I don't know if you guys have checked it out yet.
I made me.
I tried to search it and couldn't find it.
Well, there we go. It's a good first outing for Nintendo. And then for the final segment, we're getting back to Game Club. Joe's going to be on there. Final episode. We got Ben Reeves and Joe talking about the massive third disc of Final Fantasy VII. But it's one of those things where you'd think there'd be a shorter discussion because it's just like a sliver of content.
It's just the final dungeon, and it ends up going on for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, but it's a good chat. And also at the tail end of that, we announced the next Game Club game.
Ooh, wow. The thrills, the chills.
Would you want to join us for the next one, Andy?
I mean, you want me to ruin everything?
Yeah, please.
What is it?
I mean, yeah, exactly. You want us to join without knowing what the next game
Exactly.
is.
Commit right now.
No, I'm not going to commit to that.
Oh,
All right, then you guys are out forever.
Wow.
You got to tune in to the GI show at the very end.
Wow.
I don't like Ben Hansen's getting a little dictatorial over
I
here.
know.
Yeah, part of that word.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I didn't watch this Final Fantasy 15 stream last night.
Oh,
It aired on
okay.
Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I watched the trailer, and I played a little bit of the demo, the Platinum demo.
Okay, yep.
But you just want to walk us through what all they announced for this thing?
Oh, man. Yeah. So there was a lot of stuff going on there last night. I think for me, it started off on like a super high note because they brought out Hironobu Sakaguchi.
Which was awesome.
Amazing.
Who's like, I don't know. I mean, for those who like don't know all the history, like he sort of had a bit of a nasty split from Square, I think.
Was it nasty?
There are rumors. I don't know how much of this is confirmed and how much is just sort of rumor, but I mean, like he was the mind behind the Spirits Within movie,
Right. That
lost a lot of money, and I think sort of connected to that, he broke from the company. I don't know if that break itself was like super hostile or anything, but it just seems like he's been really distant from Square over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
I went to, just as a side, I mean, I went to the Honolulu studio where they worked on Spirits Within back in the day. And, you know, and by the way, he had the coolest office I'd ever seen anyone in ever because he was like a Bond villain. He basically was on, there were two beaches from Hawaii like crashing behind him, like, and it was just a giant vista window, and he like kind of sat at his desk, and we kind of like got to come in and like say hello, and he was just like hello, and he like clean desk, modern, with just like the most amazing view of like a point in Hawaii in this giant office building. It was unreal.
I imagine like a volcano behind it, like lava flowing, like The Incredibles.
I really thought that's what was going to happen next. And it was one of the weirdest tours ever because they just walked around, because this is what I think the split comes from. It's like they literally walked us around. It was a really weird tour because they'd they'd open up like the floor and go like, look at all our internet cabling. This costs like $3 million. And then be like, hey, here is like a Silicon Graphics workstation. Each one of these costs $3 million. And like we did that over and over again. I was like, man, this place is expensive. You know what I mean? Like,
This movie better be good.
Yeah.
And so I think when the movie failed, you know, I mean, there was a lot of money spent and not a lot of money returned, you know, to Joe's point.
I think Final Fantasy and Square in general has learned their lesson now, and there's going to be no more big budget movies based on Final Fantasy. It's all over with forever. So what else did they talk about at this event, Joe?
Yeah, okay, we'll get to it. Yeah.
Okay.
But before we move on, I want to say one of the interesting things that I thought Sakaguchi said was that, like, okay, I'm the father of Final Fantasy, but,
Okay.
but like any parent, sometimes you wonder if your child is on the right path.
Oh, wow.
Which is strange that like Square put him up there to say that, which is sort of like, I mean, I think a strange acknowledgement from the company that like maybe we haven't been doing the best thing with this franchise over the past.
Well, I think
few years.
everybody's noticed that.
It's crazy that they talk about it so much,
exactly,
though.
Exactly. Like the fact that we know, like we all know that, but the fact that like I think that a company like Square Enix is actually willing to come out and like acknowledge that.
To the point that it's like it feels like it's a big marketing beat for 15 in general. It's like, by the way, sorry, but look at this crap. Like, that seems to be their entire message for 15.
Let's not look at this crap. I mean, I don't think that's what they're saying.
No.
All right, look at this impressive game.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think to build off that too, I mean, like, as far as I could tell, general temperature after that last night seemed to be pretty hot. Like,
It was crazy.
I was expecting like some like internet skepticism, I guess, from it, and especially given like how much of a joke over the the last several years that Versus 13 was and stuff, that like people seem pretty hot on it. So
It was shocking. Yeah, like just the announcement was like there were rumors and whatnot about the release date being unveiled. It's like expect like a trailer or something. But Dan Tack, I was talking to this morning about that event, and he's like, "Holy crap, that was gigantic! Just the marketing budget that they must have put into this event just to try and rally the Final Fantasy fans for like the last big push of this 10-year game development."
Yeah, and for me as a fan, like I was not disappointed because like a lot of the stuff that they brought up. Okay, so like Sakaguchi, then they show this like. I don't remember the exact order that all this happens in, but then they like
They numbered it for you too, and you can't even remember.
But like Yoshitaka Amano was in the crowd, and they unveiled like a really cool piece from him.
Okay.
That then they did some like cool like digital 3D rendering thing of.
Okay.
So I mean, you have to see the video to like appreciate it.
Sure.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, to get to the there were a lot of smaller announcements like that. I'd say like, okay, here's what our special edition of the game is going to look like and stuff like that.
Box art.
Yeah. But what I think the sort of and there was also so the major beats were
Cruising around the desert.
that there's a new trailer that looks super awesome.
Stand by Me. Is that the song
That's
that
Florence
plays?
and Machine.
Yeah. So Florence and the Machine is performing like the theme song for it, which is their version of Stand By Me.
Interesting. Okay.
But the trailer also shows like a new summon in action.
Titan,
which is super cool.
I want to know how many those summons look so impressive, and the fact that they're in the world is awesome. We saw it with Ramu, with the Duske demo, and I still don't have a good read on how many of those things there are.
No, or even necessarily like what role they play in the whole like overall story.
Because it seems important to the storyline. Like that she keeps showing Leviathan and like that water town.
Yeah, and that Luna says something like, the king will prove his worth to you or something like that. So
Well, like when they
That's
ran
my favorite quote from when I was 15 too.
Well, no, I mean it just indicates that there's there's some sort of interaction between like with the summons and I don't know.
I think when your car runs out of gas, you summon Titan to go get you some more gas at the local.
He runs up across the world and pours a tiny little gas can.
Or I like the idea of him just picking up your car and hucking it to the nearest gas station. That would work also.
I really want to see like with that level of detail. I want to see Fat Chocobo. I want to see like some of the more absurd summons and how they try and render that crap out. Jeff, did you watch the trailer?
No.
All right. What's your interest level on 15?
I'll probably play it eventually. I'll succumb to it, but I mean, like, it's just a game that's coming out.
This seems like your attitude that you had about Metal Gear Solid 5. before it came
Absolutely, and
out.
I was so pleasantly surprised.
So it's
I
happened
loved it.
before once, so therefore it'll be your game of the year.
Game of the year. Calling it right now. I just want to see that dumb cactus guy run. It's going to look great.
Okay, so the trailer was one major beat, another major beat. They announced sort of like 3 pieces, like I don't know how to frame it, like expanded universe content. I
What
guess.
did they call the 7 larger world? They had a name for that.
That they called Fibula Nova Chrysalis or something like that?
That was the 13 world, wasn't it?
Oh, 7 was compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, that was the umbrella
13
for all
was
that.
Fibula Nova Chrysalis, which
English here, please.
I get it.
Which is fascinating to think about the history. Like, I think we even pitched this as like a Game and Firster joke, the idea of them announcing Final Fantasy versus 15 now.
Yeah.
To think about that, like that overreach, I would argue, of 13's world is where 15 started development, and now that 15 is nearing the end of development, they're like, but we're branching out again and doing the exact same thing again.
Yeah,
I think it's a little different this go.
It's
I think it is.
Yeah, it's
how
super
so?
different because so for the 13 chronology, that was like 3 completely separate games,
Right.
that shared like a vague sort of mythology behind them, like a same sort of.
These
like,
aren't the 313 games. It was like the phone game and the
it was
PSP game.
It was Agito versus 13 and 13.
Right,
Were
okay.
the 3 like prongs of that.
And Agito came out recently.
I mean that changed from Agito to Type 0 and
Type
then
0, that's what it's called.
came out in the US last year as Type 0 HD.
Right.
So I think the difference is that they're not doing like multiple games here.
Right.
The prongs of the expanded universe are, I think, instead of being like separate products, they are other things that are pointing people towards the real product. Like
Please go buy 15.
Yeah, pointing people towards 15. So you've got a full-length animated CG movie called Kingsglaive.
Crazy.
That
Do they have any talent in that?
yeah, strange you should ask. Andy.
Weird.
Yeah. So
Oh, do they? Was this a big point in the thing?
Yeah.
Big thing,
So they've got I don't know how to remember Lena Headey, the Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones.
Sure.
Sarah Connor.
Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't see this part of it, but I guess Sean Bean is in it also.
Sean Bean's
I'm
in
sure I is wait.
super
And by the way,
time.
and the best part is the second they put Sean Bean up, and he's like, he's gonna play like the king or whatever. In this
Oh,
thing.
God.
Yeah.
Is he?
And then my Twitter feed just went like, he's dead. He's dead. Like there was just like a ton of like, he is so dead. Like
Oh my
almost
God.
immediately. It was
It's
hilarious.
I mean, like you cast Sean Bean and that character is dying.
He could be in a DreamWorks movie and he get his head chopped off in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're sort of telegraphing a story
Jesus
development
Christ,
there,
Square.
but
Okay.
anyway, so that's one end of it. Another end is an anime that they're putting out, like a 5-installment anime called Brotherhood.
Okay.
That I guess is sort of like detailing some of the backstory of the main characters.
Cool. Where'd they get that car?
But the other thing, I guess, is like I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but the first episode of Brotherhood is like apparently out.
Holy cow!
Available.
Really?
Yeah, like it's streaming online.
Did you ever watch Last Order, the Final Fantasy VII kind of Clouds Past anime?
I didn't because I heard that it weirdly conflicted with various other accounts from the game and stuff like that. I didn't need some other version of the FF7 mythology in my head.
It was kind of cool, but I mean, as we talk about in the
I
game
can't
club,
keep the one mythology.
Yeah,
in my head.
yeah, it's already hard enough.
there's too many unreliable narrators in that game, as we talk about later on.
Yeah. So the third prong of this is a mobile game called Justice Monsters 5, which looks like pinball but different.
See, now we're talking.
And it's a mobile game. It's a mobile game, so it's in the game.
Yeah.
And it's a mobile game you can play on Android or iOS.
Oh, so the
Right.
character will be like, "Hey, hold up, Titan. I gotta."
No,
So-
not in game. I don't think he's doing it that
So
way.
yeah, so
Good words.
one thing I'm not totally clear on is so like in the game it looks like it's like an actual pinball machine that's like in rest stops and stuff. I don't know if you're actually stopping to play the mini game itself in the game,
Oh, like it's a second screen kind
or
of thing.
or if it's just. I mean, like what we know is that the game itself is coming out on mobile devices, and
I'm
PC.
hoping they're connected. I mean, I'm hoping like in game you can stop, like you said, like at the gas station and like play this thing, which I think they just kind of made it look futuristic. Like it looks like pinball, but it's a video
Yeah.
game. It's just the screen is like.
I don't think it's
flat.
going to launch into the other game, though. My read on that was that it's just like, hey, we're going to dick around with this pinball machine in the game, and then you can download this app if you
Yeah,
want.
exactly. And I think, and then like play. I think you can play the app. I'm hoping, and then it'll like you can like I don't know make money or whatever it is, and then spin it in game, like they've done in a lot of like
Right.
kind of second screen experiences.
And then I saw something about a flying car,
yeah.
that we don't need roads. What is this?
I mean, so as a fan myself, the reason why this is exciting is that like there's been some sort of speculation about airships or not. Like are airships going to be in the game? And then like was at Gamescom, I think the director Tabata had said something like, oh well, maybe we'll do airships as like downloadable content after it releases.
They talked
or
about getting
something.
like Avalanche to help them out.
Yeah,
the
and
Just
then,
Cause team.
And then I think it was last week, there was some announcement about like, well, just so you know, we've decided whether or not airships are going to be in the game. But then they didn't really say anything about it.
Right.
So I don't know for sure if this is their solution to it, but it really seems like it.
It's a big tease.
Because like, there's basically a moment where one of the, I think it's Noctis who's like driving the car, says like, leave it to me. And then the car like transforms into this like airplane looking thing and like takes off and flies.
So, as somebody who loves like the Highwind, love Ragnarok from 8, like, is the car satisfying as an airship, or do you want something bigger and cooler? Just putting wings on a Cadillac, like,
I don't know that it's necessarily the form that the airship takes that's the most exciting aspect of it. I think what would be the most exciting is the fact that fans have not had an actual like fly around in an airship moment in Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy IX.
yeah.
I mean, I guess not counting like mounts in like 11 and 14 or whatever, but
Sure.
I mean like in 10, in 12, in 13, it's all been like
Dirge of Cerberus.
Okay, so those like you get the airship as like an iconic element basically somewhere in there, but you don't get that sense that you had in those old Final Fantasy games of like flying around the world, of exploration. And if that's what that brief little clip we saw last night points to, then that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could be two things, by the way. Because I'm a bit of a pessimist at times.
Okay.
But it could be that like that's your like kind of fast travel like taxis in like Grand Theft Auto, where you kind of get in and like it kind of does that animation, and then you show up like on the map like wherever it is you go to. I mean, I like, are we going to be flying around that world? I hope so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know that this thing necessarily says airships are in the game 100%. But
sure.
it does show that like there is a way to move faster in the world. I think it does show that.
That's totally a fair point. I think that there's the context surrounding it of like people being so curious about whether or not you get the airship, and then them saying like, we've decided what form that's going to take. I think that the way they did the tease,
You're pretty sure you're going to fly around.
I am, but again, like I'm sort of looking at this as like super fan optimism.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I think
right.
it's cool. I mean, the second I saw the car, I was like, that car's totally. I mean, like, not to be like after the fact, to be like, like I told you so, which I'm not trying to do, but totally when I saw, I was like, they're going to totally turn that into your airship at some point. They have to. I just feel like it's like Joe was saying, it's the fans. Like the fans want it. I think they're trying to give the fans a Final Fantasy what they want, right?
They're
Like, some
really.
experiences.
It seems like they're just tripling down on this game at this point, which is an interesting strategy, because not only are they releasing all the side content and the game itself looks massive, but then also they released a demo, and it's not like it's a slice of the game. This is a new experience that's completely separate from the game.
Right. Yeah. So we didn't even talk about that. So the other, we talked about the release date already a little bit.
September
but,
30th.
It's September 30th.
Cool.
Which was sort of ruined a little bit yesterday, but I mean,
Sure.
I mean, well, the surprise of it was spoiled, but like it's still great. I mean, like I think that's a little sooner than I was expecting it.
It's surprisingly
So,
soon, yeah.
But at the same time, it's still sort of like 6 months out or so. So
There's still time for it to get delayed. Let's just not
Does anybody
forget.
want to put any bets down? I'd put a bet down that it's getting delayed.
It's true. There's time. You would?
Yeah.
1 month.
1 month bet?
1 month delay.
Oh, okay.
No. You think it's gonna I'll take that bet.
Man, after such a big kasha, do you think they'd... All right, where we go, $5?
$5.
All right, done. Hand shook. There we go.
Wait, to be clear, you think it's going to get delayed?
Wait, I thought you thought. Yeah, no, I totally think so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so $5 bet. There it is.
All right.
Wow, you guys are big spenders. Slow down.
Viewers as my witness.
Give us a range.
You could have
Andy.
just said lunch. That would be more than $5 and more entertaining than $5. Here's your $5.
It's dignity, Andy.
Yeah, apparently.
So the other thing that they announced that was interesting was that the platinum demo, which
You can play now.
You can download right now. I have it downloading at home, so I haven't played it myself. But you said you got some hands-on with it.
Yeah, I didn't finish it. It finishes with like fighting outside as an adult Noctis, but the whole thing is it's a little side story showing. I think it's like a dream sequence, and you play as the main character's name is Noctis as a little kid. And Cork, you would love it. You should really play it because it's little kid in big world.
Love it.
Because it's all like you see it and it's so much fun because you have like a big toy hammer and you have a little toy car and ramming blocks around this giant living room. It's basically a Toy Commander from the Dreamcast.
And like magic
my
is
God.
fireworks.
Yeah, totally. It's so much fun, but it just makes me wish that like the entire game was like that. I want the entire game to be a dream sequence because look how fun this is. But it's also strange because it feels very tech demo-y. Like there's a bunch of little like circles on the ground that you run up to and stand on, and it like changes the lighting in the room. Like, look at this crap.
Yeah, but that's not a huge surprise. Like leading up to this event, they didn't say. They said that a new demo was coming out, but they weren't like, "Hey, it's a brand new like game demo." It's like there is a free tech demo on the
Right.
way. They had like mentioned that,
And it's a little more gamey than that.
Yeah,
But don't expect something on the level of like Dusk Sky. That was huge.
right. Yeah. So it seems like this is a little bit smaller in scope, and a lot more sort of focused on like giving people a taste of what the technology can do, rather than because it's not even like a chunk of the game, from what I understand. It's actually like just a separate.
Yeah, it's not on the
story.
this is not on the disc.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
Like
right.
when you buy the game and get the final game, there's never a part where you're not playing a part of the game early.
It's a
different
playable
Right.
teaser.
Yeah. That's my understanding.
say.
So yeah,
Get it
I'm,
while you can.
Wow, look at the
I'm
PT
looking-
reference.
I'm looking forward to checking that out. I guess. Oh, the one little interesting piece of like connectivity that they mentioned is that The demo features Carbuncle, who's like a classic Final Fantasy summon.
Love it.
And he's no like Bahamut or Shiva or whatever, but he's
always loved Carbuncle.
He's
Super
been
cute.
he's been in a lot of games.
Yeah.
So you're sort of like running after him in this dream sequence, I guess. But they did mention during the stream last night that if you complete the demo, you get to name Carbuncle, who will then appear as like DLC or a summon or something in the final version of the game when that comes
Like
out.
I think you're unlocking it too by doing that.
Yeah, it's not in the game unless you do it. So you can have little butt kiss Jeff Cork just run into the main game, Final Fantasy 15 or whatever you want to call Carbuncle.
Yeah, a little butt kiss joke.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
Typical name.
Clever.
Jeff Cork.
Yeah. You know
It's
me.
It's your child's middle name, I do believe. Good. So that's Final Fantasy 15. So thumbs up, buzz is building.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I myself was excited for it and knew that would be the case, but I was also pleasantly surprised that the community also seems to be excited.
I just would like to say that when we look to Twitter, that to say that they were excited about a JRPG is kind of like, I mean, that's like, if it was like another game, they would hate on it, but that's kind of like the solemn ground that people always defend.
So
I feel
if
like
a Call of Duty game had been in development for 10 years and then they launched this big marketing budget extravaganza last night, you'd be like, F this.
they would have been really angry. They would have been like bro angry, right?
And I will say the people I follow on Twitter are
Typically
very
very
like-minded in terms
Yeah.
of RPGs.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, if nothing else, that means that the game is at least resonating with its target audience.
Yeah.
Which is good, right? I mean, that's good that the fans are, because if it doesn't resonate with the fans, it's sure not going to grow and get like a larger audience, which, I know they want to get with this. And I mean, I think that would be cool. It's been a long time since Final Fantasy, like I remember 7's launch. It was crazy. Like the world was insane. People were like out of their mind. Like, have you seen this game? And I think it'd be cool for Final Fantasy to get back to that.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah. Hey, Jeff Cork.
Hi.
You were the first person in the office to really spend a lot of time in VR. Outside of we had a big long demo day for the cover story months ago.
Yeah.
But you were the first person to check out Adr1ft and
Yeah.
spend multiple hours in there all day.
Absolutely. They saw my glasses and said, perfect. Here we go.
So what was it like as GI's VR pioneer?
Well, let's say I wish that I had LASIK.
Was it uncomfortable with the glasses?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is the Rift.
With the Rift. It did get... The adjustment of it is so critical to whether or not you'll be able to spend much time in there, at least from my experience, because they're making accommodations for people who wear glasses, but it's not designed for people who wear glasses.
Barely. They're like, if you have really small glasses and not hipster at all, right?
If
you
you're
can get, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can get in there, but I mean, if you have a big head, I mean, there's a lot of, it is glasses friendly, but
Yeah.
barely.
So you should go to like
You
lens
know.
crafters and say, I'd like glasses like Santa wears, and then you'll be good. So,
Give me your Santa line.
yeah, exactly.
Or I put contacts in on every time I do extended VR
Really?
sessions.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah. Because it makes a huge
Is it? You
huge
think this
difference.
is just a Rift or PSVR? Is it the same?
I can't even put my glasses in the Vive. I mean, literally, because the way I put the Oculus Rift on is I take my glasses off and I put them inside the unit, right? Like, I got to prime the pump and then slide the whole thing with my glasses onto my face. And let me tell you, especially because when you're like, okay, got it all on, now I need the controller. And it's like, they basically too, when I use my glasses, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, it's actually squeezing on my head, like on the side of the glasses, which at first I was like, why am I getting a headache? Why is VR giving me a headache? And it's like, because my glasses are literally pinching my face in.
Yeah.
God,
or
the
my head
future
in.
sounds awesome.
So, it's bad for people with poor vision.
Right,
I mean, basically. So, I mean, I think they've done some things where it does work, but it is, I mean, if you have glasses, you can make it, but your experience is so much better when you don't have glasses on, to Jeff's point. I mean, it's just the clarity of the unit, the way the unit will sit on your face, the way, like, even just like simple movements. Like, when you have glasses on, if it just cockeyes your glasses just a little bit, you're just like, and then it's like a whole thing to like get it all to focus back in the way you want it to be.
Yeah, it's like trying to adjust your hair if you're wearing a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah. It just doesn't work. Yeah, and so and in this case, when I wear my contacts, you're just like, oh, this is just so much better.
Okay, so $600 for the Rift, $1,500 or so for the PC that can run it, and then buy contacts on top of that.
I
This
mean,
is where we're at.
I mean, I think it's very clear. I mean, this is what I've kind of said. Like, the VR experience right now is not intended for 50 million people. I don't think so, right? I mean, I think the price point's clear on that. I think the things that you need to get to it are clear on that. I think it's been a race to get it out there. I think there's been a race to start the VR experience and for it to like start ramping up. And developers are excited about it. The tech is, I mean, when you think about how 4 years ago it was, the tech is really, really impressive and how far it's come in 4 years and even less than 4 years. So that's amazing, right? And they're out, and it's a consumer unit that you can put on and use, and like even guys with glasses, you can use it, and it works, and it's 6 billion times better than probably the last VR thing you ever saw as a consumer, right?
Right. Can you buy one at this point?
No. No, you can pre-order one, but I mean right now I hit the pre-order button the other day just to check this out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it'll ship in July.
Okay. And so I want to say like we're in the VR world now, but it's still this murky kind of sorta.
It's a ramp up, right? I mean that's what we're at. And the games, and I think we need to talk about Adr1ft, and I want to get back to the games definitely. But it's a ramp up. So like if you sit there and you're just going to look at the cost of this, I mean the thing I've kind of used, the stupid story I've said is like, man, Ferraris are awesome, right? I mean they're totally great. Like if you can afford one, killer, right? Good on you, right? But is it a reasonable car? Like, you're like, wow, that's outrageous. Why would I spend that much money on a car? You're like, well, you're totally right? I mean, and and spending $2,000, $2,500. I mean, like I spec'd out some PCs that I was like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I want. I mean, I'm easily getting to like $3,000. You can go with the minimum spec. The minimum spec will work, and I mean, like in a $1,400, $1,200 machine can run it, but I mean, like. It's expensive. It's a minimum. It's going to cost you $2,000, right? If you go from 0 to 100, right?
And especially if you're getting into it at this phase, like if you're that interested, if you want to be an early adopter on it, like it seems like you don't dip your toe in. You want to go all in or not at all at this point. Like like Jeff said with glasses, like if you wear glasses and can't wear contacts or whatever, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to pitch in and like buy the whole thing if you're just not getting the right experience.
But I mean, most people can wear contacts that have glasses. I mean, you can go get that done. If you're a big VR enthusiast and you want to be on this cutting edge where this stuff is happening, go get contacts. It's not that big.
That's what I'm saying though, is that like if you're going to buy the unit, you should also be willing to go out and and do that also just to like sort of get your optimal experience or wait.
And by the way, I know I sound like a complete D-bag when I say, well, just go get contacts, dude. I mean, I get it. But at this point, we're talking about Ferraris, right? And you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of mentality I think you need to go in with and be acceptable, to that this is kind of a thing. And I think that's what Oculus wants it to be. They want one of us in a group of 10 to buy it.
Totally.
And have everybody come over and play it, experience it, do it. And you should sucker a friend into paying for it if you don't want to pay for it yourself. Like, go do this thing because
you will be the cool social friend. Like, you will impress people if you have like a VR party.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be fun, and it's a great times. I think Jeff will talk about here as we talk about Adr1ft, but it's I think you got to look at it that way. So when we talk about does it cost too much money? Yes, right. You know what I mean? But is the experience good? I think is something that you try to focus on rather than the dollars, because it's just accepted this is an expensive, ridiculous thing. If you want a Honda, buy a Honda.
Right.
This is not a Honda. This is, Ferrari territory.
And before we get to fun game chat with Jeff Cork, the Vive comes out when? Soon? Tomorrow?
April 5th.
April 5th. That's next week.
Yep.
Okay. How are the pre-orders on that? Can people buy that crap?
You can indeed pre-order it, right? And you can also, the pre-orders have also gone out for both the core PlayStation VR and the bundle PlayStation VR that comes with
what you need.
What you need to run it, basically, yes. But I mean, maybe you already have the Move controllers. Maybe you already have PlayStation, the eye, the camera, so you're good.
No, you don't.
No, I mean, I know when PlayStation launched, a lot of people were getting it because a lot of people wanted to stream themselves. I mean, there's a lot of people that are into stream, so there's a lot of cameras out there. I think more than we would normally. Like for PlayStation 3, this would have been a joke.
And there's a lot of heroes on the Move fans that have Move controllers. For that.
I was laughing more about the Move controller than the camera.
Right. So they're all available for purchase. But in the same sense, I think if you ordered a Vive today, and I don't know this, but I'm assuming you're probably it's gonna take some time to get out to you, right? And they're manufacturing it, I think, as quickly as they can. And to be fair, when PlayStation or Xbox launches, there's that like initial shipment. And then there's like people kind of waiting around or buying expensive versions on eBay. This is not, some kind of like screw job by the Oculus people or the VR group. I mean, I think there's demand there, right? I mean, I think that demand shows when it says if you want to pre-order one today, you got to wait. You can't walk into a store and buy one, right? There's no way to just be like, oh, I really want one. I'm going to go check it out. You needed to plan ahead. And on top of that, you really need to run the software program that says they have like on their site. It's like, hey, download this, and it'll tell you whether your PC is compatible or not.
Ooh, that's nice. Okay.
So the thing about that is that your PC probably isn't compatible if you haven't recently built it or recently upgraded it. It does have some minimum specs as far as like the CPU, the graphics card needs to be a pretty good. It's not cheap. It's not a $100 graphics card. Let's put it that way.
Aren't there like 8 USB inputs too, or something crazy?
It's not 8, but it does definitely need, I think, 4 or 3.
Okay.
And that's not including like mouse and keyboard.
Right.
I mean, I'm not remembering that maybe specifically, but it does take a number. It does include that on the thing. It says, are you USB ready? You have to have USB 3.0, I think, or greater. So like if you have older USB, it's not good enough to support it. I mean, there's a lot of. Once again, we're talking Ferrari here.
Yeah.
We're not talking, Honda. So it's there's a lot of requirements that need to be in place. I mean, I feel like I have a really good, PC, and I ran mine at home, and it failed out on the CPU, and it failed out on the GPU.
Okay.
So I looked at it, and to upgrade those things is going to be $600 as a minimum if I replace them, and I do all the stuff to replace that. And at that point, I'm like, why would I not spend another $600 and just move on? So it's expensive. Right.
Yeah. Okay, but if you have the ideal setup, you can have an experience like Jeff Gorks, right?
I don't remember what we're talking about.
Final Fantasy, Miitomo.
Final Fantasy, you're a little guy, big world.
You are the one small step for man.
Yeah. Talk about this Adr1ft game. This is Gravity the game, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Yeah.
So I played the version on Steam in 2D. How do we refer to that? What's the...
I don't know, the standard version?
The standard version.
You could just say you played Adr1ft on Steam.
I played
and
Adr1ft
then we'll
on
use
Steam.
the Rift qualifier to differentiate it from the regular
all right.
experience.
I like that. Andy compared it to Descent. I wasn't expecting it to be so Descent-y. It feels like a very slow, fully look around, fully float around, very, very slow experience of
because,
slowly gathering oxygen tanks.
Because at the very beginning of the game, you're in a space station, and it blows up. And go figure, one of the first things that is destroyed in the process is its like false gravity system or whatever. So you are, like you said, just floating in space, and you've got a jetpack that will creep you along in zero gravity, but it's also tied to your oxygen supply. So the more that you ping pong around and show off your sweet moves, the quicker you'll run out of air.
It seems frustrating to always have this meter draining. It's like, it feels like you're always underwater in a game where you have to occasionally come up, except in this case, you just got to hopefully find one of those tanks running around. Like, it's a terrible feeling.
Like the Sonic music is always going...
Absolutely.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's intentionally doing.
I know. I'm
and
saying that it's frustrating. It feels like a timed level constantly.
It's like that
doesn't
at the beginning, though. I think that
Okay.
it isn't like that throughout the entire game either. And it's pretty generous with the number of coolers that are floating around in space with the oxygen containers in it as well. And you've got like a thing that your suit can automatically like ping. You can push in the stick and you'll ping an area and it'll highlight all the tanks. So it's not like you're just wandering around fruitlessly looking for air.
And just to be clear, you like this game a lot, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great game.
Okay.
And then you also you get incremental upgrades to your suit as you play too. So eventually your oxygen capacity will increase. Your thrust, your speed, like your control and all that stuff changes too. So you're able to control, do more stuff, basically.
And so it's more than just a collectathon of finding little story nuggets while trying to maintain oxygen in a broken space station the entire time.
Well, you're repairing that space station.
Okay.
Or parts of it to get home.
Okay.
Which is Earth.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Because you are a person.
Earth. Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to me because we've, on previous episodes of this show, you've kind of been the biggest VR skeptic. And you were the first one to really review a VR game, and you came away going like, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool game.
Game or VR experience?
Kind of a little of both. I think that the VR is really cool, and it does add things. But I mean, if you look, you will see the kind of the seams in the experience too. Like I think the resolution still has a long ways to go. Like
Right.
And some of the stuff too, just the way that the game is designed in VR. Like you go up to a computer terminal, and you're doing looking back and forth like you're standing right next to a chalkboard, to read text. Whereas if you play in a traditional display, it's just there and you're reading like a human. So some of that kind of stuff is weird. And the way that your UI, you have to physically turn your head to see your like your waypoint and turn the other way to see your oxygen level. So you find yourself moving around a considerable amount. But overall, like playing it, if you don't have VR, if you can't afford a Ferrari right now, like a lot of people, you should play the game because it's a really cool experience overall. You will miss out on like going out into just space and seeing the Earth below you, and there are like scenes that are just absolutely incredible in VR.
It feels like when you have a friend who is under the influence a lot and is constantly raving about this movie, like, you've got to see this movie, and then you watch it and it's like, this is okay, but you watch it sober. That's what VR feels like to me. People that experience it in VR, it's like, oh man, you feel every nook and cranny of this world. It has such a huge impact on you. And you play the standard version, it's like, this seems okay.
I don't know. I mean,
it's a beautiful game in both games. I mean,
it's
a beautiful game.
Good.
I mean, like I think to be a little fair to that, right? But I think this is more akin to like people that say, oh, I should see this movie in in 3D or not 3D, I know 3D is really weak because 3D like movies are great, but some people really like think that's great, right? And I think it really adds to the movie. Some people, like Matt Burtz always goes, I just had something float in space in front of me, right? He's just all angry about it, right? But I think for the people that play it in VR, it is true. It's way better than 3D, obviously. It adds to the experience of Adrift. I mean, I've only played about an hour of Adrift. I haven't finished it yet, but it definitely adds to the experience, right? I mean, can you like take the VR? I mean, this is one of those things that people have been doing. Like, if you take your head and you move it way back, you will see your kind of body floating there, right? That's kind of doesn't have a head on it because you're the head, and you just moved, intentionally moved out of range to like kind of screw up.
And you're doing this by literally taking a step back, then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you're spatially in there,
right.
But I kind of liked, and I think it's one of the things they do a lot in VR right now, is that they want you to move your head, right? And like when they want to have you read things, they do them big, so you're like, first of all, for readability, because like you said, the resolution is a little different, and also just the way that the world is rendered and like how focused in you are. You know what I mean? If they made the text really small, you would have to really make sure that Oculus is set up with like perfect 100% X on X, like amazing, right?
Yeah.
They make it bigger, you can have a little bit more leeway, and like whoever sets it up for themselves or just throws the helmet on, that it'll still look good. So I think that's kind of the fun stuff. I mean, I had fun, like having the helmet on for me was like, I have a helmet on. This is really weird. And then you're like, whoa, okay, there's my oxygen. Oh, okay, all right. And then and then as you start to go into the world and the like kind of how intense that game is,
and the headphones have to really have an impact, yeah.
And I mean, you've got like dum dum, dum dum, dum dum. Dum dum. Like in your head as you're floating over space and Earth and going like, whoa, this is insane. And like, okay, where's the oxygen thing? I've got to find it. And Jeff and I both have had there's the thing I need reach, which is like, X, you're like, right. And then, and you die. It's a little.
You don't just die. You're like gasping and slamming your hands against your helmet.
God, no.
Yeah.
It's intense. It's more intense in VR.
Yeah, you have a real sense of presence in there too, which is kind of hard to convey. And I think the important thing here, though, is that Adrift is, and this is, like I said, this is important. This is a game that is a game, and it feels like a game. It doesn't feel like this is just a proof of concept tech demo, which is what I think the majority of the launch lineups for these devices are going to be. So this is something that you can play on a Steam PC. And even if you think that VR is the dumbest idea, you could still have a really great time with it.
Did this completely change your opinion of VR?
No,
okay,
absolutely not. Because I know that like people who are smart can take advantage of it, and it will be cool. But I don't think that's going to be the majority of what happens.
Sure.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to point out about it too. Just talking to Jeff as he was like writing his review and stuff, is that like what did that VR adds apparently seems to add a really cool layer to this game, but where Adrift succeeds the best, like where it succeeds and where it fails, are ultimately a result of like what Adrift is as a game, how it's designed, how it plays, all that stuff, and not necessarily a function of its like, of the VR angle.
It's not a parlor trick, I think, is the easiest way to put it.
Sure. So is it, Andy, you've played a lot. I'm curious, is it the go-to game? Is it the beefiest game in this launch lineup?
I personally like Chronos the best.
Okay.
I mean, that is the one I finished. I mean, this is a little unfair because I have not finished Adrift yet. I did play it. I feel like Adrift is one of the best ways to kind of experience, because Adam was really funny. Adam Orth, the guy, one of the creators behind Adrift, was funny in that, you know, he'd be like, well, there's times in the game that you can, like, there are people who can experience, it's an intense thing, right? So they can experience a feeling of like their stomach maybe turning in Adrift, because there's times you come around the corner and all of a sudden, like, there's earth like way far away, you know what I mean? And there's debris like bouncing off the front of your face, right? And kind of things like that. And it can be disorientating. It actually has a button that kind of recenters you. And it actually does an iris thing where it closes down so you don't see the whole world as it kind of turns you back to straight up, which thank God it does that, because it would definitely, when you rotate and turn and drift and move like sideways at the same time, that's when VR makes you the most uncomfortable. Right? You know, so Adrift as an experience of like, they were willing to go and say, I want you to feel like you're in space. I want you to like go off that edge and go, oh.
Astronauts don't have an easy time.
Yeah, you know, I mean, to feel that, for it to actually kind of punch you in the gut.
Right.
And I think that's amazing in Adrift, right? And that's in Adrift VR, right? Like that's something you are not going to get. You're not going to get a punch in the gut when you come out of the thing in the kind of normal just PC experience. But that could be a negative effect for someone like Joe who doesn't like that kind of thing, right?
I would get so sick.
And Chronos, which is my, like I said, thus far my favorite game, it doesn't have a lot of those type experiences in it. I mean, it stuck more to kind of the basics.
It's third person, right?
It's third person, but is it an amazing VR experience? Is the game better because it's in VR? Yes. If Chronos was a game in 2D, like if it was, you know, just like it's a 3D game, but I mean, if you played it like on a regular monitor, it would be a good game, but it's a better game and a great game, I think, in VR, right?
And so this is like former Darksiders 2 developers. They went off and developed this. It's kind of Dark Souls, Zelda-ish. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think there definitely takes some keys from Dark Souls. I mean, it's not Dark Souls, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's not as hard as Dark Souls. It's not as intense as Dark Souls, but it takes some things from it. And you know, the camera angle, I think the easiest way to describe it is that it's like Resident Evil, and that you sit in a corner and you experience rooms.
Does it cut between rooms then?
Yes, it does cut between rooms. So
okay.
when you move from room to room, it changes the camera angle, which is one of those things, like when you play the game, it can be disorientating because you're trying to like navigate this labyrinth, right? And it's like, okay, I took a right. Okay, now that right is my left.
Okay.
You know, and so it has that kind of to it, which is a little confusing at times, and it doesn't have a map, right, that gets you around. So you have to learn the world, which I don't necessarily think is bad, by the way, but it is a thing. But that said, it does do cool things in VR. I mean, when you're fighting these guys, like a normal fight with just like an enemy would be like, oh, okay, I'm fighting this enemy, blah, blah, blah. I kill him, I move on, right? In VR, there's this giant, I mean, like, because it's on your face, it's this giant guy. And I mean, you're going at him toe to toe. You've got a shield and a sword. And I mean, you need to block, you need to dodge. These guys will kill you. They're not as hard as Dark Souls. And because you're viewing it from third person and the camera is kind of affixed, or at least it's affixed to your face, right? You know, I can move around to look in this world and change directions. I mean, it can't be like this super duper precise battling game, but it does do a very good job of making it require skill, right? You know what I mean? So it's not like ultra precision, but there's definitely precision involved in beating things, beating the bosses, and moving forward. So it's really cool. And there's a couple things that I won't like kind of spoil, that when you move through the world, you're like, oh, what am I gonna do there? Okay, that's really cool in VR. Okay, or that's really cool with like the fixed camera kind of thing. But ultimately, the Darksiders guys love Zelda.
Right.
There's a lot of things that like you owe to Zelda in here. I mean, I put it more as like Dark Souls meets Zelda with a Resident Evil camera. If we're gonna do the like, hey, I got a pitch for you, in the movie pitch for you. So it definitely fits within that. But you get more weapons, you get stronger. One of the cool things the game does is that as you level, and you level pretty quickly, like it's not like stingy with the leveling. You can buy like strength, agility, vitality, and you have this kind of, you know, magic power. And at the beginning, when you're young, because every time you die, you age, right? So whenever you die in the game, you go from like 18 to 19, 19 to 20, 20 to 21. So like when I beat the game, I was 62 years old.
What a weird concept. Okay. I guess Chronos, time,
there's okay. And so, and your face changes. So like at the beginning of the game, it's weird. Like I turned it back on after I finished it, and you're just like such a young pup, right? And at the end of the game, you kind of grow a beard, and you start to look like Jeff, actually. You start to look a lot like
decrepit and dying.
Yeah. And so like at the end of the game, you're old. But the thing is, the things change. So strength is cheap, and agility are cheap when you're young. So they like cost 1 or 2 points.
Sure.
and the magic is expensive, wisdom kind of thing.
Okay, interesting.
Then as you get older, that changes. Strength and agility start to cost more money as you start to go on the back end of your journey,
That's
right?
novel, yeah.
And every time you hit a hallmark, like when you hit 20, 30, 40, 50, you get a power, right? So you get to choose one thing. So and it's kind of like you're battling out there in the dungeon has given you the choice to be better at defense, better at offense. You kind of get to choose one of these perks as you go along, which helps kind of, I think, balance the game as you move forward. Because obviously, every time you die, it's harder to get strength, which makes it like that's your power or how hard you hit things with your weapons. And there's agility-based weapons and there's strength-based weapons, right?
Okay.
So
that seems like a weird kind of penalty to me. I don't know.
I felt like to me, at first I was kind of, I'm like with you, I was like, I don't get this. I don't know what this is bad. But what it did is it gave me a sense of urgency in this game. I really spent a lot of time like, I don't want to die here, right? You know what I mean? Like, I really don't want to die here. And the thing is, too, is it's a checkpoint based, right? So, like, if you go through and you fight all these guys and get to the end of this area and you don't get to the, like, kind of classic, Bloodborne or Dark Souls, like, open that door that enables the shortcut for you to use when you respawn next time.
Right.
You got to do it all over again, right?
God.
And, like, so, yeah, you're getting experience. Like I said, it gives you experience quickly, right? So you're leveling up. So it's like, okay, you kind of suck to that time, do it again. If you have to do it 3 times, you've probably gotten a little more powerful for that fourth run through there. But there's certainly the like, man, I'm 29. I don't know how far in the game. I know I have like these many bosses to kill. I mean, there's a panic, and I think that's good. And you only have it. You can't. As you start to go through the game, you find these dragon hearts, and so a dragon heart you put in your backpack. And as you don't have a health bar unless you open up your screen to see how much health you have. So when you're normally playing the game, because it's not, when you pause, you don't pause. It just brings it up. So if you're fighting someone, you're like, what's my health at? You're probably not opening up to see what your health bar is at.
Okay.
So your character like kind of reacts. So he like kind of slumps over, starts to limp. The dun 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 comes up when you're like at near death. But you have to like stop fighting, put your shield on, put your sword away, reach into your backpack, pull out this heart, and like absorb it to fix yourself. So it's not easy to do in battle, right?
Yeah.
And you only, once you use it, it's inert. So you only get, for lack of a better term, you only get 3 Zelda hearts or 1 Zelda heart as you collect them more through the game and increase the amount of like rejuvenations you have. So as you're traveling around, like I finished an area, beat a boss, and you used all your hearts, then you're like, okay, now I got to start this new area. All right. Hopefully I can get to the end because I don't want to go up a year in age. I want to get to the end of this.
Right.
But you have no heart, so you're like, the battles are that much more intense because you're like, I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah. And
then when you are hurt, you're like, oh God, now if I die, I've got to start over and do that whole area again. So there's a fair amount of anxiety that comes with it, but I kind of feel like I enjoyed the anxiety, right? It's frustrating at times, but it did make it's a game. I mean,
that's the main thing I was wondering about. Hanson had mentioned earlier, like a lot of times with new technology launches, you see a lot of stuff that really is more about showcasing the technology than it is about like creating an interesting experience. And it sounds like Chronos is a legit like gamer's game that you just play in VR.
I mean, right now, I mean, it's a long way away. I realize it's March, soon to be April. I mean, Chronos is on my top 10 list right now.
Oh wow!
This game was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. But to be fair, everybody here, I love Darksiders, right? And you know what I mean? This team speaks to me, and it has cool things that I love from Darksiders. They once again have the coolest doors, right? When you find the key, right? You know what I mean? And you're like, Darksiders. I love that stuff that they do. I mean, they just make stuff that's normally like in a Zelda game or whatever, just kind of like pedestrian. Like it turns into a more grandiose experience here, and I really enjoyed it.
But unlike Adr1ft, like we talked about earlier, this game is exclusive to Oculus. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean,
no standard version.
I mean, there might be some surprise that I'm unaware of, right? But I don't think this game works outside of VR.
It's okay.
Interesting.
That's So that's your best. That's That's the best experience you had in VR. What are the other standouts? You don't have to list everything you played. You played 1,000 tech demos and little gizmos here and there. But what are the go-tos?
And first of all, I would like to point out, I don't think this launch list is as like fake as everyone is putting it out to be. Like I've played a lot of fun games, but I think one of the things I'd like to point out is that this feels like, to some degree, because we've gone into VR, there's a bit of a reset, right? So these aren't games that are have the long list of like, say, the new Call of Duty, right? That has like, single player, co-op, multiplayer, like the whole giant perk system. These games feel more akin to like a launch or like, Super NES, PlayStation 2, and things that like Lucky's Tale's like a platformer, right? It's just a classic platformer. You pick things up. It does cool things in VR, and it's a really great game, right?
Lucky's Tale's up there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I really like the experience. And but I mean, it goes back to a book to show you the levels. It has a collect the 10 red coins that are hidden on the level. It's a little bit more. I think quaint's a bad word, but you know what I mean. It's a little bit more old school than new school, right? And then in that regard, but they're games, right? That doesn't mean they're not games, right? So there's definitely some of that going on here. Like one of my other favorite games, or like an experience that's listed as intense, and it is pretty intense, was Radial G.
Hang on, can you clarify that a little bit? So they have ratings for each Oculus game about like how comfortable you can be.
Correct. They have
how sick it's going to make you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm totally. I know I'm all in on VR, right? And I sound like this. The sick thing to me, just to kind of throw this out here, I kind of hate that discussion a little bit because I think it's something that like the media and people have kind of like latched onto is like they've built this thing up and it's gone from like, obvious public development kits going out to people. Like, and there are games that do make me uncomfortable. I'm not saying that there aren't games, but I'm not literally like throwing up across the room, projectile vomiting, like ripping this thing off my face. There's times and there's things that make you uncomfortable. And to the point of Adr1ft, like I liked the uncomfortableness in Adr1ft. I thought it added to the experience, not subtracted, right? But that said, I played a lot of games. I mean, I probably played 25, 30 games in this, or experiences in some cases. Some of them are movies. There have been ones where I've literally been like, get this thing off my face. I don't want to do it. But mostly because, I'd like to point out, it's mostly because the software was bad, right? It's not to say that it was the Oculus that made me sick. It was things like arms clipping. Like if you had the helmet, like in Adr1ft as an example, if the helmet was like flickering and moving in and out, that would make me sick, right? The bad software would make me sick. I'm not so much like that Oculus makes me sick. It's like the application that's poorly done or poorly executed that makes me feel uncomfortable. Or in this case, a lot of times we go do demos and I see a game early and it doesn't quite work yet. Those make you uncomfortable early on, but I don't think they're a representative of what the final product can be. Good software is good software.
And Radial G is good software.
Radial G is amazing software, right? You are like, basically it's F-Zero.
Okay.
And you're riding on a rope tube, and you can spin
tube?
It's not really rope. It's all like techno futuristic. There's like
I get it now.
Like you're racing, right? But it's the best way. It's a tube, right? I just kind of like, and it curls around the world, and you're riding on it and spinning around it and hitting hitting boosts, and there's even jumps. And as it goes around, there's even times where you fall off and go back to the tube, or times when you're on the tube and you hit like these blue things that shoot you to a shell around the tube.
Okay.
Right? So you're going from on the tube to bong up to the top of the tube, and it's like spinning around. The camera does, and then you'll go back. I mean, it's intense.
So if you want to get a good reaction of somebody in VR, this is the go-to experience.
It's so fun. It's really fast. I was sitting there. I really was having a lot of, like if I just played F-Zero, I'd be like, this is a fun game. But F-Zero in VR is, it's a lot of fun. The music is fantastic. It's really fast. For being in VR, you're not going to be like, this is the fastest game you've ever played, but it's very, very, very intense. A lot of fun. And that's a gamer's game. It's got like the classic like ladder. You go in, you like do championships, you do hot laps. You've got like rival things you can go against. It's a game in every sense. And the software is clean, crisp, solid. Nothing like breaks up on me as I go through the world. And like all those things matter.
Yeah.
Because like in something like Eve Online, which I like, and a lot of people are kind of saying that or not
Eve Valkyrie.
Eve Valkyrie, sorry. Eve Valkyrie is like kind of one of the go-to things. That game is beautiful, but at the same time too, I think they didn't quite get all the pieces in play. Like there's basically like light kind of glitches out in front of the end of your ship, and that for me annoys me and makes me not like the game, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. You're just talking about that in the UI.
Yeah,
and the
it's just kind of like things that flicker in this case, like really, really make me uncomfortable. And I don't dislike the game, and that's the thing, is it's not the flight that makes me uncomfortable in Eve. I have no problem flying around. I'm not a good flying game guy. It's not the flight that gets me.
It's just hicky, glitchy nonsense.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's bad software that makes me feel uncomfortable.
I want to jump in on this too, though, because I get that you can like try and separate the software from the hardware and point that out, because like what's important about that is that looking toward the future, it means that this isn't a like doomed thing, that they will eventually, once they get their legs under them, will like software will get fixed and be able to provide like more comfortable
We'll do better,
experiences.
yes, and they'll learn more.
But
yes.
that's not all there is to it, because like I'm particularly prone to like motion sickness or simulation sickness. So no matter how good the software is on some of these, like I'm still going to get sick.
You're still going to.
That is still a thing for some people. So like I don't want to like. I just want to put that out there that like I don't think we want to make total apology or be like, oh no, the sickness thing is this like media created problem.
Well, I don't think it's a media, but I think that like it's different for each person. Like someone like, is this a game that's good for me? It's like you have to decide that for yourself. I mean, you know, Joe, you don't play first person shooters because
right.
Like I mean, that's it doesn't matter if it's in VR or not. You're not playing those, right?
Right.
And so in that case, I mean, I don't expect you to be like hopping on that train or doing like the roller coaster thing, per se. I'm just saying that like what I don't like is the perception that you're right. It's not out of the realm, but I think even you, if I put you in some of these like more intense things, you would be like, I feel ill, and you'd walk away, and your stomach would be turning like you would like on a really big roller coaster.
Yeah.
Right. I don't see you, Monty Python like projectile vomiting, there's just like this violent eruption of things that go wrong, which I think is like a lot of the times the picture that's painted.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
more,
for me, it's always a slow. It's like play it for 20 minutes or so, and then start to feel a little bit sick, and just turn it off, and
then feel it for a couple hours. I'm in the same boat as Joe. Yeah.
And I mean the thing is too, I also felt like this too once I played it. Like at the beginning, I was like, put this thing on my face, like get it on there, right? And like like I needed to make sure it was all secure. And as I played it for more, like when I was on like day 3, I'd kind of learned that like I was being way too aggressive, right? You know what I mean? Like the skull thing that's on the back, that does all the work. Like if you don't have to.
The skull thing?
There's basically, it has a kind of a catch that goes to the back, like the base of your skull.
Okay.
Right? That kind of begins the units for all of them, by the way. They all have that kind of built in. And like I'm usually trying to like shove the thing on my face and not so much worry about the other parts that hold the thing into place.
Okay, yeah.
And as I got more used to it and found ways to put it on in a more comfortable manner, like that really made a difference to me for like headaches. I mean, I had a headache one day because Bertz had used it that night and I didn't know it. And I came in the next day and put it back on thinking it was my same thing. And
it was all misadjusted.
It was all misadjusted and just like basically just squeezing my head the whole time for the 30 minutes. I'm like, I feel awful today. And that was just, I should have checked, right? Kind of thing. But once you kind of become comfortable with the units and get, like, it gets better. And to some degree too, you get sea legs. Like, day 1, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I was ever like uncomfortable because I feel like I've got a pretty strong stomach in VR. But you get better over time.
Does your face get better, or you just keep those lines on the face?
Yeah, there's nothing to do about the
brutal.
lines. Yeah,
it's like hour and a half, 2 hours till those lines go away.
Yeah, I don't think it's 2 hours.
It took it 2 hours for me after playing Adr1ft.
But he has such soft Play-Doh-like skin.
I never go outside, so maybe that's the problem.
I really enjoyed Tim Schafer's tweet at you, by the way, when you posted a picture of those lines and he says, "Oh, I see VR's making headlines." Damn good.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely VR face and hair. I mean, it's not like something you want to do right before you go out for the night, right? It's interesting. I don't know. I enjoyed that game, and I think the lines are weird and the sickness thing is weird. I know we got a little off topic there, but there are a lot of great games, and I'm going to throw out a couple other ones that I really enjoyed.
Sure.
Darknet is this. It's basically you're in cyberspace and you're a hacker.
Perfect.
So it's kind of just that whole metaverse kind of thing, but it's really simple. It's just a puzzle game where you just look at things to kind of move them around and solve the puzzles, and then kind of send out like hydras and other things like that to fight. And to break in, to hack, to get to the center of the code. It's not super complex game, but it's kind of oddly relaxing, and you're kind of just sitting in this just giant thing of nodes and like kind of looking at them. And
it's basically what you imagine VR's like in the 80s.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, it is kind of. It is kind of. It's interesting, but it's a pretty cheap game. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought that was great. I already mentioned Lucky's Tale. Eve Gunjack actually is
Eve Gunjack.
Yeah, they made a game that's you're basically in a turret. So all you're doing is shooting ships that come at you, but the shooting is done through the head-mounted display. So it's where you look, and it's really kind of weird at first because you're holding a controller, right? Because the touch isn't out yet. So you're holding a controller. So you think to yourself, okay, I'm in a turret. I'm going to do what I do in a turret, and like where are the enemies coming from? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, like I am like Luke Skywalker was doing this wrong. Like this is way better to not like drive this thing around. To just look where you're going to shoot and shoot is cool. And the ships come at you like Galaga. For lack of a better term, they kind of come out in like in formations that go across you. So it feels like kind of an old arcade game, like Galaga, and then you just shoot with your eyes.
That's how Res Infinite works too in PSVR, and it works surprisingly well.
And it's really fast, and because everything has to be 90 frames when it's working at the ideal situation. So it really changes the way you kind of play that kind of classic turret game. And I know it's a little parlor game at that point, but it's fun, and it's really fast, and you can really start to move quickly through space using your head as the way that you aim, and it works surprisingly well. So I thought I had a lot of fun with that game as well. The other games that I like, Pinball FX VR, it's all old tables.
Yeah.
But it's kind of great to be like I don't know who plays Pinball VX.
Jeff Cork, you're a pinball fanatic, aren't you?
I like them.
Yeah, you like well, like when you're playing them, you kind of go through the cameras, and there's just like 7 of them.
Yeah,
and there's never one that's just quite perfect, right? You're like going. There's one you always eventually go like, this one will do.
Yeah,
this
5.
is the one I do the best at, right? This is the one that gives me the most information. I knew he would know. In this case, because it's VR, you can look up over the table and move in and move your face forward or back. Which kind of when the ball goes to the upper part, there's always that part like you chose the wrong camera where it's a little bit harder when it's up towards the top of the table. You just kind of stretch up and lean forward, and you get it. I mean, it's like a pinball game, and it kind of adds. I mean, they're old tables. They're like Mars, Epic Quest,
Twilight Zone.
Okay. I can't remember what the third one is off the top of my head, but they're really fun in this thing. I mean, they're still the same tables. They're still like, whether you like those tables or not are the same thing, but VR adds it's an interesting way to play the game and kind of get a better view. And I felt like I was better at their pinball games because it was in VR and I could control the camera instinctively.
And you have hands and a body also?
Well, basically,
just a floating head.
You're in this like kind of arcade thing, and like it's weird because like when you're playing Epic Quest, like the Epic Quest guy comes up next to you and is like, "Rah!" and he's like giant, and kind of like standing around you.
He's like the king from those commercials,
and
the Burger King guy.
And I think the other game is Terror from the Deep. I think that's the name. Yeah, and so like the other one's Terror from, like there's sharks going around you like while you're playing
In the arcade?
Yeah, it's VR. What? It's kind of crazy.
Throw it in there.
Yeah, you need distractions when you're playing pinball.
Yeah, exactly.
Bunch of flashing lights.
God, how can we make pinball entertaining?
Another game I really liked was Blaze Rush, which is basically Ivan Stewart's off-road racing, for lack of a better term.
What is that?
That's an old school game. That's fun.
You're too young.
Tell me more. So it's a track that's like basically if you imagine the track was on this table, right, and we had little RC cars that we drove around this track with like jumps, and in this case you get machine guns and like turbos that you pick up on the track, and it's 4-player whatever, and you drive around the track shooting each other and like bouncing, and like it's just fun RC car Ivan Stewart's off-road racing.
And you're looking over the table?
And you're looking over the table, yeah. And, and you kind of, I mean, you can use it to move around the table. The camera does move as you go around as you're racing, but you can, use it to like see what the turn's coming up. You kind of look to your left or right to kind of see what's coming up and thing. Very simple, but a lot of fun.
Okay.
Which also falls into the Air Mech Commander.
Yeah.
Is the strategy game they made, which I'm not the greatest strategy game player ever. I know that Wade has been in love with the game. He's like way into it. I catch him every night kind of sitting over there playing. He's like, I'm just going to check it out again.
It's a little tower defense-y, right? Is that...
it is tower defense-y, but you could create units, right? And deploy units like in that classic kind of RTS fashion, right? And then your ship, the air mech, can either be on the ground or in the air, and you kind of switch that on the fly.
Herzog's way.
And you can move the camera around and focus in and zoom out as you move around on the battlefield, and it's just like a little battle like takes place in like just in front of you. Once again, it's that whole like there is a table of like really expensive miniatures going on here, but I get to blow them all up, and it's really easy to move and kind of get around in and shoot things. I didn't play a ton of that game, but like what I was there is fun and solid and good. I just kind of suck at strategy games, so I was like, RTS isn't my thing. But it is certainly an impressive game. There were some other games that I didn't love, like Windlands is this one where it's actually a first-person jumping game.
Oh, good God.
So this one's listed as intense, and I figured I had to try it. And it is actually, because it kind of looks like Jumping Flash to some degree, it's very simple, like polygonal world. It's really solid, moves fast, so you get a lot of advantage to that. But it is definitely like jumping puzzles, and like you get a tether that you use to kind of like hit things and get pulled to them.
Okay.
So it's pretty intense, right?
All right.
I didn't love it, but it's an interesting test on like moving around in the world, because one of the biggest problems VR faces, and this is one of those things that people are going to have to solve, is that moving in VR is weird. There's no way I can walk forward.
Right, it's becoming a lot.
Right. So it's like, and when you have a controller in your hand, we all know how to use a controller. The analog stick moves me around the world, right? Simple enough. But in other cases, like that's Gollum for PlayStation VR, tries to do something where when you lean forward, it moves you forward. That's how they've solved movement, which is kind of like you feel like you're tipping forward, right, to do things, which for some people I think is unnerving.
Right.
But in this case, like just moving around is that way. And like in Vive, they do things where you like literally like kind of throw a thing forward or bullet train. You pick a spot,
right.
And then you hit the button and you teleport there is the way they've done it. But in this case, you kind of move through the world, which works, but it is a little weird, like jumping and doing everything in first person, which is one of the things I think they have to solve.
Sure. What is the absolute worst game you played on that list?
And I don't know.
Close it out.
I hate to do it because there's like a lot of things came in that there was getting a lot of updates towards the end.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't want to like completely throw it under the bus, but the one that I had to like basically throw off my head in its current form, which was like about a week ago before launch, was Project Cars.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The one I was actually really excited about.
Yeah, it had just a lot of clipping issues, and like I said, whenever the software was bad or like kind of the way things didn't quite work the way I wanted them to, it made me really, really uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
It is one of those ones that I'm trying to patch up, and I want to like check out the most recent version of it because it is a game. It's the game, and so it is one of those games that has a ton of depth to it.
And we can set up the racing wheel up there too with that.
Yeah, you sure can. I mean, it's all those things. I just at this point it didn't quite work in VR for me, and I don't want to throw it under the bus because, like I said, it could have had patches that fixed all my problems with it, but there were a lot of problems with it. I raced for about 2 seconds, and I immediately took off the headset and said no.
Wow. Okay.
So that was kind of one of my.
But overall, happy with the launch of Oculus?
I think I actually asked the question on Twitter. I asked people. I was like, I'm really impressed. I need to like remind me of all the greatest launches. People were like Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, even the original kind of Xbox launch and things like that. And I was like, okay, I put it a little bit of perspective here, right? But it's a good launch. I mean, it's definitely a lot of titles, a lot of fun titles, a lot of things to show people. A lot of these demos are not amazing or anything like that, but they're kind of fun to check out. See a dinosaur, some things like that.
Okay.
It's well done. There is a good, well-rounded launch lineup.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think like some of my friends were wondering also is just like sometimes when you are an early adopter for something, the support isn't out there. So this is something like if you were one of the people that pre-ordered, there are plenty of opportunities to get out there, play real games, see some cool experiences on the Rift right now.
Yeah, I think so. Now, is it worth $2,000?
No way in hell.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think
if you want a Ferrari, it's
it's worth it. Yeah, exactly. If you can afford it, it's worth it, right? And I think that's really the question. Like, I mean, there's gonna be people that say it's not worth $2,000, like you just screamed out. And you know what? Fair enough. Like, that's fine. That's a choice that people get to make. But I really hate judging this thing just based on how much it costs.
Sure.
Right? Because it's a good launch lineup.
Yeah.
The hardware is very, very solid. And if it went this fast in the last 4 years, oh my God, in 4 years. Like when they remove the tether, when they make the units smaller, when they increase the resolution. I mean, there's just so much stuff that can happen over the next 4 years that's going to make it so much better. But I think these are going to sell. I think people are going to buy them. I think people are going to play them with their friends. They're going to enjoy it, and they're going to say, that was an experience unlike any other. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely said that a number of times. And even playing games that aren't in VR, which I like, I'm kind of like, I kind of wish I was playing a VR game. I mean, I think they're cool. I think it's an experience that's singular and fun and matters, right? And I think it is a. We said it was the year of VR, and I know I'm really like I believe it. And this is the start. This is something that's going to change. People are going to play VR games well into our future, and they're going to solve a lot of problems. They're going to make it where Joe doesn't have to be sick. They're going to make games for Joe, right? And it's going to all happen. And I think that's great. I love the experience. I'm a big fan.
I had a new feeling that I haven't felt before where I was in the office. I was like working late on Monday. So I was in the office around like 8 o'clock by myself. And I really wanted to check out the Oculus. And it was sitting there ready to go. And I was just too scared. Because like by myself, the office is already scary. And I'm like the most fearful person on planet Earth. But I was like, I don't want to seclude myself and make myself blind to all other senses of the outside world, because I know that cleaning crew is coming in at some point, and they're going to scare the bejesus out of me. And that just made me think of like, even if I had this in my home, and like I would be so scared all the time of my roommate scaring me or someone knocking on the door and me not hearing. But then again, I want to play it by myself. I don't want someone constantly sitting there because then I can't get immersed in it. It's like you're stuck between these two worlds of you want to play it with somebody else, but you don't.
So here in the office, we have the Rift set up next to my desk. So I sat next to Andy, who's doing. I put so many notes on Andy, but then he's my boss, so I was like, maybe I should go take that off, and I did before he ever caught
You'll
me.
put a pink slip on your butt.
But like that's the thing is they kept the price down. I mean, even though I know it's super expensive, they were trying to keep the price down. They can put through cameras on it. I mean, it is on the Gear VR because it's a cell phone. There's a camera on there that you can hit the button and see the real world. And I think AR gaming is going to come into fruition over the coming years. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do in AR that you can't do in VR that I think are going to be very, very cool and a lot of fun.
But like Oculus has said, like there's no reason we can't turn this also into an AR machine.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those things are possible, and I think that you are going to want to. I mean, I think that VR as its own experience is an experience you want to have, right?
Yeah.
I think that it is something that is like I said before, singular. So, and you're going to find like that camera would make you more comfortable with knowing what your surroundings are, right? You could do that, but it's also kind of fun. I had no idea who was around me, and I was like, I give no craps.
Would you do it by yourself in the office at night, though?
Yeah, I've done it. I was here all weekend.
Oh, I guess that's true.
I was here all by myself the whole time.
Aren't you scared of the boogeyman coming out? Like, it's terrifying.
He's an adult.
Yeah, I don't think it's terrifying.
understand.
I was more along the lines, this is cool. No one's going to walk up and interrupt me, thank God. Like, I don't have to like, hey, is this thing cool? Like, I can just sit here and play.
Play Outlook. Cool. Real quick, we should touch on Miitomo, Nintendo's app. We talked about it last week a little bit, about it being out in Japan. I just played with it a little bit. You make a Mii in the beginning, and then it's just basically a gamified social network. Like imagine like Facebook, except you level up for leaving comments and you get gold along the way.
It is astounding that Nintendo adheres so rigidly to their Mii creation suite of tools. It's like all those same useless noses that look like penises. All those eyes that are like drilling into your soul. It's like, make some new assets.
It's,
like this is your chance to reinvent yourself.
They locked that down. It's like, this is what every face looks like.
My stupid Mii looks exactly like it did. 7, 8 years.
Don't mess with
years
perfection,
ago.
man. When you have that UI of slowly separating the eyes out.
I wonder, like, if you were to legitimately go through and poll people, 75% of those assets are unusable because, like, their eyes that are just like, this does not even look like a symbol trying to represent
this resembles
an eye.
no human. Yeah.
Like the nose, it's just like a pig nose, and it's like.
Did you boot up Miitomo then?
Yeah,
Did
and
you
I made
did you take a picture to have it like try and guess your face?
I didn't get that far into it because I just wanted. As soon as I saw all the tools, I'm like, oh my god, Nintendo, make some new pieces, and it still has that same thing where I'm like, oh, hey, we'll take a picture of you, and then we'll just like arbitrarily put a picture of a sun, like a sand hourglass or whatever, and then it'll just be some random assemblage of like, I don't know. Here you go, you weird freckled redhead.
Why don't you just tell me what you look like?
Oh, it's your beard. It thinks that it's looking at a shrubbery.
This is just a pile of garbage. Nice try.
Yeah, it's funny though because like you can type in your nickname and then it like reads it out, and you get to choose the voice that it reads it out in. Which I typed in Yosetti, which is like my dumb Twitter name and username and all that crap, and it pronounced it, I guess, correctly. I don't know how the hell you actually are supposed to pronounce Yosetti. And then you can like affect the pitch and the tone of the voice. You can just make it sound like some demon child, like "Welcome, Yosetti," and then it like interacts with other people. They come visit your house and they tell you about their favorite things, and you can comment on that and win little Mario hats to wear. And it has like a store that changes out every day, Animal Crossing style. It seems vaguely interesting. Joe, any chance you're gonna check this out?
Maybe.
Okay. You can make fun of a lot of people in it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, you and Cork are fans of making fun of people on Facebook. Maybe it'll like really.
Hey, I'm curious to see it, like, because I moved into the apartment real quick and I looked up and down. I'm like, oh, it's like Tomodachi Life.
Yeah,
basically.
very much so.
So I'm curious to see how many of those elements are in there because I thought that game was funny.
I had two people kind of give me some feedback kind of online. One was just like, it's fun to make the Miis say swear words with your friends and like play with that. Like they were like, that was a lot of fun.
Nintendo's finest work.
Yeah.
And then also I just heard from other people, they're like, it was fun for a week and it kind of fizzled out. You know,
I
as
could
far
see
as
that.
As far as like people like in Japan that I follow that were kind of on it. So, you know, I don't know how long it lasts as a social network or a thing to play with, but it certainly seems like, you know, there's some things to mess around with.
It made me amazed to think that Facebook hasn't tried gamifying things a little bit more. Like, I feel like when Facebook was first around, everyone was like posting on each other's wall and just talking, getting real conversations going. And now it's like, you'll like a picture of a baby once a week. Maybe say happy birthday. But if they could just give you like a little level, little experience bar, don't you think that would get people talking and sharing on Facebook more?
I don't want that though. If it's
You're
just
scared of
people,
it?
No, I don't want to read people's like trying to power level themselves. It's just even more inane bullshit.
I agree.
I mean, one of the great things about Facebook the way it is that like you choose your level of engagement without any sort of like incentive or anything.
I'm already regretting all those like memories that I created, not knowing what I was doing, because it's every day it's like, hey, you have a memory. And I pulled up one of them, and it was a picture I took of a toy helicopter because it looked stupid. I'm like, oh yeah, who could forget that 6 years ago? That was a wonderful time.
Montages. It's just dumb photos of toys.
Yeah.
Playing to hope you had the time of your life.
You have
underneath it.
memories with Jeff Cork today, and it's like Jeff Cork wrote on your wall, "You suck." Okay.
Timeless.
Really did it. We should move on though. It's been a long segment here. You want to move on to some reader emails?
I want nothing more.
Here it comes. All right, everybody, we've got some hot emails here. Remember, you can send an email into podcast@gameinformer.com. Something you want us to talk about, question, comment, feedback, anything like that. And then don't let me forget, we're going to choose the email of the week, and then we send them out something real nice.
Do you forget that sometimes?
I have forgotten it before, and then I still get the gift out to them. I just don't announce it on the show and whatnot,
Gotcha.
and so it kind of feels anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Just to congratulate myself, first we have Gary from Kansas City. He really enjoyed the special edition Metal Gear podcast. I got a lot of nice feedback on that, so thank you for listening to that.
Yeah.
And he wants to know if we can expect more stuff like that in the future. I would love to, not in that format. That was brutal, because like the YouTube version in particular, it's such a slippery slope of like, well, I guess it's just a documentary then. I got to worry about B-roll and timing with all that stuff. So it's either going to be something in that vein of like more Radiolab style edited, but then no video component or a super streamlined video component, or still a special edition, but more of just kind of a larger discussion, maybe with a couple guests on the phone at the same time. He also wants Kim to be back on the show. She will be soon, in a couple weeks, I promise. Hello, GI crew. It looks like Nintendo could eventually end up having to compete with these VR headsets later this year with the NX, which leaves the question, which do you expect the average consumer to pick up this year? Do you think they will stick with the more traditional experience of a home console or be tempted to take a risk on a brand new experience? That's Darren from Stillwater.
Can I get it in a single box at Toys R Us?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Like a parent who's looking for like a easy Christmas present, or like we'll just use the aunt or uncle. Mm-hmm. They're not going to go, okay, let me see. I got to buy this PC. I got to make sure that it's compatible with it. I got to buy the... No.
Right. Okay.
They're completely different markets too, ultimately.
They totally are, but there's still...
But I mean, it's like the market of a Christmas present. If it's like Andy was saying, it's like several $1,000s. It's like, I'm not going to buy my kid a Ferrari. I'll tell you that.
Maybe a Ferrari bed, yeah. So do you think there is a competition there between NX and VR in terms of just gamers' dollars?
I mean, I guess there's always a competition for gamers' dollars at all times.
But in all forms of entertainment.
Yeah,
though,
exactly.
Not just,
I would say that. I mean, we need to see what they've got. I mean, I think both are interesting things, and I think that's we live in a great time. You know what I mean? If NX interests you, then you should play it and you should buy one. If VR interests you, like you should go down that path. I just it's a weird question to me. Just in that, like, not that it's not insightful, right? Like, but it's just that. They're gonna attract the audience they attract, right? If that's what people want. I mean, I think VR is not gonna. It is gonna have a lot of talk about VR, but I mean, they're not gonna be flying off the shelves, right?
Yeah.
There's not gonna be there's not gonna be 10 million VR units sold this year. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. But will there be 4 million out there? I don't know. Maybe. You know what I mean? Who knows? Will there be 4 million in X out there? I don't know. I mean, I hope there's both. I mean, I wish them both success. How about that?
Yeah.
That's my thoughts also.
So last week, Ryan writes in for a little feedback about it. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about like Microsoft's games coming to the PC and being like, why are people upset about that? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And so Ryan just wrote in saying like, hey, you guys mentioned this last week. I just wanted to explain why it personally annoys me. Like, he's not bothered by the idea of more people playing the game. He's just bothered at the idea of like, he was roped into buying an Xbox One because he really wanted to play Halo 1 multiplayer. And so the Master Chief Collection he bought, and then he's got really excited about like Halo 5 and Rise of the Tomb Raider and Quantum Break. And then all those are available, arguably a better version of like Rise of the Tomb Raider available on PC. And so this box is just collecting dust, and he just feels like he wasted his money when he already had a super high-end PC. So he's like, it's not a matter of like sharing the games. It's a matter of just personally feeling like I wasted this money when I didn't need to spend on Xbox One.
Well, and I understand that too. If you feel like, especially if you feel like you were deceived somehow with it, that you were told you can only play these on this console, and then once it's too late, to make that reach for the broader audience once you've sort of suckered people in.
So it's just a matter of how they phrase that nebulous console exclusive thing versus full exclusive.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it'd be nice if companies were a little bit clearer about that. Drew Maschiarelli writes in and says, "Hello, everybody. I am a bit obsessed with statistics in games, and while I find them fascinating, I can also find them a bit disheartening. Every time I log into Steam, I feel that I'm reminded of my 500 plus hours spent in." Does somebody have a guess for what game you spent 500 hours plus in?
Counter-Strike.
Joe?
Skyrim?
Cork?
Some match 3 thing.
Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Wow.
Whoa.
Do you like knowing how long you have spent playing games, or do you find it demoralizing? Do you guys like looking at the little hour count?
I would like an accurate count because, like, for instance, when you suspend things in Xbox One, sometimes, at least my like, there's no way I've spent as much time playing Fallout 4 as that timer tells me. At least that's my like.
Yeah. I think I ran into that with, what was it, The Witcher or something? There was some game that told me I'd been playing it for like 180 hours because it had been suspended at some point. It's like,
I've played Jackbox for like 300 hours. I think it's like I think I just had that on at a party. 300-hour rager.
Yeah. Now, one question that I think Andy's the ideal person to ask about this because he plays those like, wow, you can actually like just get a pretty accurate count for how long you've been logged in.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't. You can be idle in a city, and it will call that time played.
Right,
certainly,
right.
yes.
But still, you get a sense of, like in an MMO especially, you get the sense of how much of my life has been spent. How many days of my life have I played this game?
I mean, I can feel for what this guy's saying.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. I mean, I get that sense. I certainly get a bit of anxiety over it at times, right? There's times when you're just like, oh God, I'm just wasting my life. But then I remember video games are awesome and they're great. And like, you know, the time spent is, if it's time spent doing something you love and time spent doing something that you enjoyed, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you're not ignoring, like, you know, your dog and, you know, your family and everything else and like the important things. You know, Miller always says this to me, and I wish I was as good as Miller. Miller's like, if someone asks me to do something and I'm playing a game, I will quit and go do that. And I'm like, wow, that's really great to be like, prioritize real life. I'm never doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that's just not good. Like, if I'm in the middle of a game and I'm getting somewhere, like, leave me alone. I want to finish what I'm doing here in this game. So I mean, I get the guilt.
Yeah,
I get the guilt.
My favorite Andy.
Go
ahead.
For me, it's a point of pride.
Yeah,
like I love it. I never get anxious when I see what the counts are. For me, it's always like I always like seeing, wow, like I maxed out the timer in Final Fantasy VI at 99 hours and 59 minutes. You know?
Right.
Like I like that.
It's sad seeing the Stardew hour count go up endlessly, where I thought that would cap off at some point, but oh no. By the way, we should mention, Joe, you're like my little star fruit, slowly planted a long time ago, and now you're fully immersed in the Stardew world.
Yeah, I really am. I've probably got like 25 hours in that in like less than a week, I think.
Man, and you started out skeptical, and that's largely melted away?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, the reason, okay. Is it okay if we go into Stardew a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. We got it.
We're crunched for time, but Stardew, yeah, let's go.
Okay. So for me, what was, I started actually maybe a little bitter about it because I've been playing Harvest Moon games for a long time. And I think I feel a little bit the way PC gamers felt when all of a sudden console gamers played Halo and were like, hey, first-person shooters are awesome, everyone.
That's my analogy. I'll take credit for it. But yes,
okay, that was yours. I couldn't remember whose it was. So I feel a little bit like that because like I've been playing these farming sims for a long time, and then all of a sudden like this one comes out and everyone's treating it like it's this great new like revelation. So I played it, and in the first like 5 hours, I was like, this is straight up Harvest Moon.
You can plant crops and get married though, Joe.
Yeah, and it's like that's all stuff. Like in those opening hours, I didn't see anything to me that pointed towards it being anything more than just like a straight up clone of Harvest Moon.
Really good clone.
Yeah, a good clone, but like still
totally.
Like I didn't see any innovation there. Mm-hmm. But then the deeper I got into it, what I realized that it does at the core that's really, really important that Harvest Moon doesn't do is it gives you more carrots on the stick in front of you.
Yes.
It's not just the sense of like, well, once you get to fall, you unlock this, and once you get to winter, you unlock this thing. There are a lot more. It's basically the community center and those bundles by dangling all these other like good rewards in front of you, and the mines do this too.
And also just like the crafting menus, and you're like, oh my god, there's so much stuff I can build. There's so many relationships to build up.
Yeah, it dangles things in front of you in a much more like explicit way to give you something to aim for, so you're not just wake up, water my crops, go into town, go to sleep.
Yeah, totally.
I think I read that on the back of the box. It said like Stardew Valley. It dangles.
Yeah.
Oh, it dangles indeed.
Yeah, it dangles.
Yeah, it's because like very much so. Like with old Harvest Moon, I'm a Super Nintendo, PlayStation Harvest Moon player primarily. And back at those games, you would just get into that rut where it's like this entire season, I know exactly what we're going to do every time. And with Stardew, even like 85 hours in, it's still like, oh my God, tomorrow I have to do this. Tomorrow I have to do this. There's so much variety packed in there, even that late in the game.
Yeah,
it's crazy. You can't get into a rut.
And I love the sense of like, of the waking up one morning in Stardew and being like, okay, today I have to do this, and tomorrow I have to do this. But the day after that, I can go down into the mine.
That's my cheat day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's like
Jeff Cork, I want you to play this game so badly.
So serious question. Am I going to have to play this game at the end of the year because we're going to need to like battle it out for game? Is this like game of the year contender amazing? Like you guys talk about with such enthusiasm. I'm like, I'm going to have to play this just so I can stop your enthusiasm.
It better be on our top 50, I think.
There's no way it's not making our top 50, I would argue.
We'll see. I mean, like game of the year, I don't know for sure. Like, you know, we've got Final Fantasy this year. We've got Uncharted this year. I don't know what those are going to be, but
you're scaring me. I'm like, I think I'm going to have to play
It's a game very much made for the tops of personal games of the year. I don't know if it can take GIs, but it'll be an interesting discussion.
Like I put Axiom Verge at the top of my personal list last year. I wouldn't advocate that being the Game Informer game of the year, but like Stardew's in the running for my personal one so far.
That's so interesting. Okay.
All right. Jose Pizarro from New York writes, hello, everybody. I'm a bit obsessed. Oh, I'm sorry. I played The Division so much that I started having nightmares about it. I live in New York, so I guess my brain believes it can happen. I've decided to stop playing it so much after I had the nightmare 3 nights in a row. Have you ever had a nightmare about a video game? Tell me your stories. That's Joe from pre-apocalyptic New York.
I've had dreams, nightmares around games. Yeah.
Like scary games specifically, or just seeing that hour count go up in Stardew?
I think the nightmare is I'm playing a game in my dream, and then I do /played, and I go and then you know, and then I wake up. I don't think it's The Division hasn't given me any nightmares or anything like that. At least not in my sleep. But I don't remember. I mean, it's like dreams. I have a hard time remembering them overall, and nightmares. But I mean, I've had them.
I had a potent mix last night, even where I watched the new episode of Survivor, which I talked about last week. I still think that show is amazing. And it's kind of a stressful episode. And then I watched the Louis episode from season 5 for like the 5th time, but it's the one about nightmares. I don't know if you've seen that. When it starts with the fish tank, it is so exquisitely effed up. It is amazingly effed up. And so that just meant that I had like a terrible Survivor nightmare of being tortured on an island. But games, it's been a while.
Really?
Yeah.
I know I've had a nightmare about a save being deleted.
Oh yes,
so I've had that too. Specifically gaming related, but like, and it's not even a night. It's not even like that was the cause of the nightmare. It was more like, you know, I got into some big fight with someone because they deleted a save of mine or something like that.
I've had dreams that kind of focus around games, like game that I'm excited about is coming out, and I'll dream that I'm playing it or something like that. But it's not. I don't think nightmares really.
Okay. So you bring up a personal pet peeve. I just like to point out. In games where you don't like when you're going to log off or turn off the system, and it doesn't have a thing that just like lets you like hit the button and say save and like when you hit exit, it goes like you're gonna lose all unsaved progress.
Yeah. What does that mean?
I go like, oh my god, and then I start looking around for like where's the save button? There is no save button. It's like whatever. It's auto saved, and I just have to remember it. So much anxiety. Every game has to have a thing that has I can just say save and leave and feel better.
Or when it tells you, I think like Tomb Raider does it, where it says like 1 minute since last autosave. Why doesn't every game have that?
Yeah. Because it kills me. That's my nightmare. And it's live, and you know, and it's happening.
It's happened to it. Like I think that's happened to everyone, where you're like, oh well, that's good, and then you start up your game and you're like, oh god, none of that level saved.
XCOM Enemy Unknown does not save automatically.
Yeah. All right. It's worst.
Hello, GI crew. You guys are the rock stars of video games. Thank you. Video games have allowed me the opportunity to play out some of my childhood fantasies. Be an awesome spy, like a Metal Gear Solid, save the damsel in distress, I guess like Metal Gear Solid. Fight enemies with swords, Legend of Zelda. Free roam historical environments like Assassin's Creed. One thing I have not been able to experience, or satisfyingly though, is the quote, small person in big world fantasy.
No.
Using objects such as string, safety pins, toothpicks as my resources to explore the environments. However, I sense that with VR around the corner, that too might be available soon. What are some of your dreams or fantasies that you now hope come to video games?
First of all, play Chibi Robo, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Toy Commander, Final Fantasy 15 demo that we mentioned earlier. It's a real easy go-to. There's like, I noticed in Golem, which we talked about in PlayStation VR, there is like a level where you're small, kind of looking at ants and bugs and stuff like that. So I think VR is going to be an interesting avenue for small person in big world.
Yeah, like that. I can't remember the name of it now. That tower defense style RTS game you guys were talking about.
Air Mech?
That one seems like I remember I got a demo of that. That seems like it absolutely should have been more of a this is all like toy stuff makeover, like super obvious, like rather than playing it straight sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, I
want more toy stuff.
There's an interview with Gabe Newell where he was talking about VR, and he was talking about how his biggest surprise so far is like he's found a real attraction just in people in VR in dealing with small things and like looking at small toys and seeing small people and just being gigantic. Most people think it'd be the opposite. Where it's like, oh, if you put a Colossus walking towards you, that'd be awesome. And it is. But he was saying that a much more attractive thing that he's found through testing is people like looking at small little things.
That's why you get so excited when you're on an airplane and you get a little bottle of liquor. And you grip it in your fist. You're like, here we are.
Hey, look at this, everybody. Bring it back home. Absolutely.
Man, for me, the big experience that I really like from a game that I haven't seen in a very satisfying way is the idea of like a detective game that isn't totally
Scooby-Doo.
Well, no, that isn't Scooby-Doo, but also isn't like Phoenix Wright. That isn't so scripted, that it's not like
What about Ethan Carter? Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Did you play that?
No.
That might be your
What about
game.
LA
That's basically what it is.
LA Confidential, LA Noir.
Yeah, that one.
Joe wants the Columbo game. Let's
is that what's going on
Let's
here?
cut to the chase.
That's what I want the Columbo
Christ.
game. Okay, anyway, go on.
Okay. Also, this person points out, Hanson and Cork, I have never heard a single song of the band AFI, but I absolutely love your Fire Inside Out podcast.
Well, he's heard parts of
Hey, do you
lots
have-
of songs.
That's right.
You have any other
Thank you for
self-congratulatory emails you can read?
Yeah, this one's just someone kissed the screen. No, that was from Gerardo from South Texas. And then Brian writes in and says, hi, everyone. Do you think you will still be able to play video games and do your current job at an elderly age?
I think it's an interesting question. I mean,
Yeah, Andy's already there.
Oh, jeez. I mean, I think it's an interesting question in that, is there like a geriatrics gaming kind of thing that comes along? I mean, I will say this: there are games I love right now that when I go to play them competitively, it's disheartening because like first person shooters. If you're, just like the pros who get too old at 26 or whatever and aren't fast enough, right? I passed 26 like a couple weeks ago, right? And so, once you go over that hump, and like there's kids out there that are so fast and so good.
Do you think that's just training? I mean, if you put in as many hours, you wouldn't be that far behind with your reflexes, would you?
No. With
never
how
mind.
fast games are now, and like with the skill level that's in place, I think didn't you guys do a thing with like you played with the pro Rocket League guys, right? And it's like, oh yeah, it's like Rocket League. How can they and they owned you like in reverse, right? I mean,
they were 9.
Yeah, but just to a degree, like you can get good, you can get better. Practice certainly does, work, and you can play 10,000 hours and be that much better. But ultimately, in games, there is a thing where like your ability to move and react at a certain speed matters, right? In particular in these multiplayer games. And I kind of joke, and I'm serious too. I actually kind of bring it up with companies all the time because I'm kind of begging for it, and I want them to do that. Is that I want these games like Call of Duty or Destiny or other things like that to have like a Masters League. To have one that like you can verify an age and play with people in your realm and not just leave it to matchmaking.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I think in some of these games I'm pretty good, and if I was like playing against Joe, I do pretty good. When I play against like 18-year-old kid who's like pounding Red Bull like it's going out of style, like I'm gonna lose, right? I'll get lucky every once in a while, but like there's that. So to that point, I do feel that like sometimes even like I'll point out like there's sometimes like there are games that I really really like that I think are a lot of fun, and they don't put difficulty selections in them. They only like have hard, and they were made by an indie guy who's like, I'm gonna just punish the crap out of you, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I love this game. I want to play this game. I want to enjoy your game, but you made it too hard for me. You know what I mean? And I think I certainly worry as I can't remember like people's names when I'm like 80, right? That I'm not going to be able to play games because I can't keep up with like some of these just demands that they put on as like what defines it as being a game, right? So I do think that's a concern. And I think that's a concern for games. Like games need to be like, if you're selling an experience, you need to be able to open it up to like a wider audience. I think that's important. I think sometimes people forget that when they're like, I'm going to make this game the most punishing game ever. And Dark Souls does that, and we get it, and that's great. And it certainly is its own thing. But like when every game's doing it, or when games are not, it's like open to like expanding that audience. I think that's a concern.
Yeah.
I want to point out something beyond just the sort of like the physical capability of it too, is just like I think there's previously a perception of like people outgrowing gaming. And I think that is something that we sort of just like culturally have moved beyond now at this point. Like I don't think there's the like, well, you know, I like playing games now, but when I'm 60, I don't think I'll like games.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, just as we see how technology proliferates and how much just gaming is becoming a part of the world around us. It's not just a thing that kids do and then outgrow anymore.
So does that mean you're going to be at GI until you're 79?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like if you love the hobby, you're not going to outgrow it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can fall out of love with the hobby, right? People can stop being gamers because they don't like being gamers anymore. But if you like games, you'll be able to continue and play games,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Email of the week. It's always tempting to go for the last one. You guys seem really tickled by that one. I'm tossing between the stats one, the elderly people, or the small person, big world experiences.
I like the stats one because it let you guys find an entry point for Stardew Valley.
Yeah, let's do that one.
It's always refreshing
right.
to hear you guys.
Drew Meschiarelli. There we go. Cork said we should start a podcast series called Dork Soils. Just a really good joke.
It's
All
top
right.
secret.
That's it, Drew. Congratulations. We'll send you out something nice. So we should tease, Andy, cover reveal next week, right?
Yep, on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
Yeah,
so
we finally decided that this morning. Yes, on Tuesday, yes.
So GameInformer.com next week. Check it out around 11 o'clock Central, and you'll see a big surprise there. Should be a fun rollout.
Yeah.
So be sure to stay tuned for Game Informer's Game Club for us to break down everything related to Final Fantasy VII, and it's kind of the end of the game and also the entire experience. So a lot of great emails there. So
And a lot about music, if you like the music.
that's true. Yeah, we finally get around to praising the music. So stay tuned for that. And welcome back to Game Informer's GI Game Club. You guys, I want this to go on forever.
Yeah.
Let's let it never end.
It's been fun.
Yeah, so we got Joe Juba on the end of the table there,
That's me.
and then Ben Reeves.
Hello.
3 best buds. If there was like a party going to fight Sephiroth, I would want the 3 of us to be in it. And then like Matt Miller and Tim can be on that floating rock struggling with Genova every once in a while.
They can be the party 2 that you switch to that doesn't have any materia equipped. And yeah.
Just the first weapon for Sid. He's struggling to fight a cactar. But what we're covering this time is the end of the game. But not just beyond that, kind of like overall thoughts, talking about side stories at the end, music in the game. There's still a lot to cover. So even though Disc 3 is microscopic, there's still going to be a lot to talk about.
Microscopic in that it only takes 5 or 6 hours probably, or 10 to 15 if you're doing a lot of the post-game stuff.
Yeah, it took me a long time actually because I did a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. So Joe, you beat this game a while ago and you went for the Platinum Trophy.
Correct.
So
Yep.
Disc 3 was huge for you.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I was doing on disc 3, because like the hardest disc for the Platinum Trophy is actually the first disc, because that's where the most like missable stuff is, and where you have to do the most specific things to like engineer your date with Barrett on the gold saucer.
Engineer. Min-max your date with Barrett.
That is what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
anyway, well, we've talked about it before. So
I've talked about it so much.
anyway, the point being is that by the time you get to disc 3, the main stuff that you're dealing with is really just like, is the grinding. Like, is making sure that all of your characters have like their limit break level, like have all their limit breaks so they can learn their final ones. Making sure like one of the trophies is like getting like 99 million gil or something, which also involves a ton of grinding because you basically like for that one, there might be better methods out there. The one that I saw online that worked for me was like you basically go to Fort Condor and buy a bunch of all materia
Okay.
and then load up your party members with like double weapons,
Right.
or double growth weapons, and then go to a particular room in the final crater there where you fight magic pots,
Right.
and you throw elixirs at them, which you get a bunch of through item duping, and then you and so you basically just like do those fights over and over again until you master all of these all materia. and then you sell the all materia for like $700,000 each or something.
And this is exactly what director Katase is hoping that fans of the Final Fantasy series would do with Final Fantasy VII.
Exactly.
Wait,
So
how do you do item duping? Is that an exploit?
Somebody did ask about that. Yeah.
it's an old glitch having to do with you need the W item materia to do it.
Okay.
So basically, it's like if you use an item with W item and then like back out, like you use it and then you back out, it refunds the item, but without actually removing it. So you end up getting like refunding the item again and again and again
Oh, so you just keep
without
doing
spending it. So then you can just like max out practically any usable item, I think.
Sure.
So.
So we have some feedback from previous episodes and some random tidbits before we dive deeper into Disc 3.
Okay.
You mentioned the limit breaks, and Gary from Alabama, the Alabama man, writes in, he says, I just want to say, in the likely event that you don't see my comment on the GI site, forget that part, the tutorial room, at least in Junin, absolutely tells you how limit breaks work. Because we were talking about how confusing that was and buried. But like, okay, so go to a tutorial room in Junin, and you can learn how limit breaks work.
And it tells
everybody.
you that you have to go switch them and everything?
It might. I don't even know what room he's talking about.
I didn't. I mean, like, I'm sure that there are rooms that tell you like how limit breaks function. I didn't know that there was a tutorial room that was specifically like, this is exactly how you learn new limit breaks.
Right.
But
why would they teach you in that town?
That's
at all?
also the worst, like having just a wall of like tutorials that you have to go through when you're like, I just want to play the game. Like that's the worst way to do tutorials. You need to like
right.
layer that out when it's like, okay, now it's time to learn about this.
Well, they had that kind of early room in Midgar, the room with all the boxes and the hopping save point thing that kind of also served as that. So I'm sure it's close to that. Ryan Wetlet writes in and says, a quick tip for you guys. If you go into your materia menu for any character, you can press the arrange button, I think that's what it's called, to the left of your armor slots. Then press exchange. You can transfer materia between all of your characters this way.
Yeah.
You can even select all of your weapon or armor slots once to swap them. On my 4th playthrough, I finally found this. Hope it helps. Thanks for the podcast.
Yeah, I did find that late in the game. The problem is, and maybe I was missing something on this, but like unlike a game, because we talked about this, how the junction exchange worked in like Final Fantasy VIII.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the problem with this is that, I don't think it works properly unless you have the similar number of slots equipped, right? Because like you have variable numbers of materia slots per character, so you can't just do a wholesale like take these 8 materia and put them on this character.
And then also like the linked versus unlinked, like it's just a disaster.
Yeah. So it's still not. I mean, like, yes, there is an option. They don't make you manually like take each one out and reassign.
Well, that's what I did. So I'm glad I know this now that I finished the game.
But it still is not the perfect solution that they landed on with FF8, which was just like basically just like transferring all of that stuff from one character to
Ripping out Squall's brain.
Also, never how I transfer materia. I rarely like take all the materia and move it onto somebody else. It's like usually a couple items or like, oh, now I want this person to have this summon.
Normally that's how it works, but I think you run into tricky situations where it's like, where they force you to use a character that you haven't used that is completely empty or something like that.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
if all of a sudden you don't have Cloud anymore and you want Tifa to fill the role that Cloud has been playing in the party, you can't just be like, hey, all of this stuff, you're Cloud now. You have to like manually go in and assign each one.
Sorry, you're Cloud now.
Yeah.
Do you have any good like go-to materia combos that you always use? Like, I don't think it was until this playthrough that I realized like, oh, Death Blow combined with added cut is basically another 2 times cut. So you can have 2 characters with that. Do you guys have any like sweet spot?
Death Blow? What does that
Death
do?
Blow is basically just it's another attack, but if you couple it up with, I think it has like higher chance to miss. It's basically
Death Blow is like a guaranteed crit, but a higher chance to miss.
there we go. So if you
Okay.
combine that with added cut, then they'll try that, and then they'll also do just a regular attack, which is a good
I guess that's a pretty good
way
one.
to double up. Do you guys
I
have
was
any
like
go-tos there?
Final Attack and the Phoenix materia. So it's like,
Final attack.
well, Final Attack's like when you die, you do one last attack.
Oh, I don't think I got that.
So you add that to the Phoenix materia, which basically reses all your guys, and it's kind of like a free. Like you
Wait,
don't die.
oh, the
then.
summon?
Yeah, the summon.
Okay,
Yeah.
where do you
I
get the
think it
Phoenix
only
summon? I
works,
didn't
like,
get it in
once,
this
but-
playthrough.
Fort Condor, I think. Is
That
what
explains it. I
is.
didn't want to go into that crap hole
No,
again.
it's not great.
Wait,
Wait,
there's a
it flew
whole-
away. Yeah, maybe I did have it then.
Yeah, you absolutely. If you do that huge materia thing at Fort Condor, I think you get it.
Yeah, so that's the one that's in like the nest after like the weirdo thing flies away.
God, I think that's where it is. I don't.
Okay.
I don't remember for sure now.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't remember where I got it either.
Are you
But
guys
that's
HP
good
Plus
combo.
people?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like, don't you have to if you're gonna like get all the way up to 99?
Do you want to get up to?
Well, yeah, for
9,999?
fighting the weapons, you kind of need to be.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just like a given that, of course, everybody uses HP plus, but it is nice just because by the end of the game, I mean, there's only a couple real like spells and pieces of materia that I have, so I have so many open slots, and then it's like, well, I have the money. End of the game, I'm just going to go to Cosmo Canyon, load up on HP plus, a little bit of MP plus for good measure, and then just stack these characters with it.
Yeah.
Well, how many did you end up using, Joe?
Hold on 1 second. I want to go back. I was trying to think of good materia combinations.
Yeah.
I think this works. I didn't do it this playthrough, but I did it on an earlier one, I believe, is that once you get the master materia, if you like hook all up to like the master magic materia, then you just get to like all of your magic has like all effect on it. So you don't need to like individually do it.
Oh,
That's
great.
real good.
Anyway.
There's the 4 times spell one, and Ultima obviously is a good one.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's amazing. Yeah, Paul.
And then you mime that, which is actually really good.
Yeah.
Or you really break the hell out of the system. That's what's kind of fun about it.
Yeah, if you like have someone do W summon and then have other people equipped with mime, and you're just like
You just keep miming it.
yeah.
Yeah, so Paul Swears writes in that big strategy for him is W summon Hades and Knights of the Round, link to HP absorb, and then W summon
Hades?
Knights of the Round, link to HP absorb, and have everyone mime it until everything dies.
That's the ruby weapon strategy.
Okay, yeah, that's actually exactly what he points
specifically
out.
that's how you do ruby weapon.
Okay, we'll get to the weapons later. There's a lot to cover there.
Yeah.
One last little.
Ben had a question that I didn't answer, which was
Well, I was just curious how many like HP plus materia you ended up using.
I mean, I had like 1 or 2 on every character. Like whatever I had on my main party of 3 to just like max them
Yeah,
out.
because I only use like 1 on each character, but I wonder if I should just use more. Because Hanson, it sounds like you.
I bought
using
11
more.
total and divvied it
Holy
up.
Crap! So you got all the way up then? I assume,
didn't-
Right?
No, I didn't actually. Nope.
I think I bought a couple, but like because I had them equipped so constantly that they would like they'd master and spawn. So then I would like keep just reallocating that way. So I think by the end I had like my 3 main party members probably had 2 decent HP plus each on
Something
them.
really interesting with Reeves and your tongue specifically, Reeves, is you say materia in a strange way. But my favorite detail of that is that we have a Gears of War special edition podcast coming up. It's going to be released on Monday. And in that, a username wrote in and asked a question for Rod Ferguson from the Coalition. And the username was MUH-teria. And Reeves is like, I don't know how to pronounce this. Like the way you've been saying materia the entire time.
Materia.
No, it's not the mud that's weird. He says materia.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
It's
how
all
do you
right,
guys say it? I don't understand what's different.
Bag.
Say the word say the word material.
Material. There's too much emphasis on the T. Is that what you're saying?
Say it's an material.
Luke
not
Chambers writes
not
in and says,
material.
Dear podcasters,
Okay.
did you know that goddamn Nibelheim, Nibelheim, whatever it is German and can be translated without much difficulty as, quote, cloud home. So cloud is from cloud home, technically.
Wow, that's deep.
Also, nibble is the first element in the German word Nibbelstreif, famously used by Goethe in Erklangende. A Nibbelstreif is a wisp of fog.
It's
often
killing me. It's got to be Nebel. It's got to be Nebel.
a Nebelstreif, I'm sure he knows. I'm sorry, Luke, that we're not saying it right. A Nebelstreif is a wisp of fog, often one that looks like a more corporeal creature. Also, Nebelstreif is the same as Cloudstreif. This is particularly well chosen for Cloud, who is a wisp of a person imitating the more substantial Zack. And he says, love the discussion. To Joe's counterexample of rewatching a movie you've seen many times without your full attention, I can only say that I don't do that. Thank you, Luke.
Well, he doesn't do it. He just doesn't do it, Joe.
Yes, a step off, Juba.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've
All right.
been beaten.
So, Reeves, a lot of people wrote in talking about little side stories and stuff that they did around the world. Outside of like leveling up, what did you do in Disc 3? What'd you do before the end of the world,
Oh
baby?
my gosh, man. Well, should we talk about chocobos?
All right.
Like that's something that I got sort of into. I don't know why.
Awesome.
Because I was like, oh, I want to breed all these guys and get to the gold one. And I thought it'd be like something that I would feel like a huge grind. But in the end, I don't know why, because it's not that complicated. But
How long does it take you?
I wish I had timed myself. I don't know, a couple hours. If
Really?
Maybe. I mean, it doesn't take that long when you just sit down and do it.
I always have like 30 hours in my head, just this impossible task to go
No,
through.
it's not that bad. You gotta like the hard part is catching the right chocobo, like having a guide is important. I think if you didn't have the guide, maybe it would take you 30 hours. But if you have a guide, you can go, you know which ones to get, and then you know how many races they have to do, and then you have to feed them greens, and then you have to use the right nuts. But
don't you get sick of doing that race over and over again?
At the end, yes. But first on, when you first start doing it, you only have to do it like three times, maybe.
And also the PS4 version, this is a great reason to use the ×3 speed.
Oh yeah, that
because like it makes those races go so much faster, and they're so much better that way.
You do start to hate that guy in the black chocobo.
Teo.
What's his name? Teo.
Oh, Teo. He's the worst.
That ass hat.
Yeah. Stupid hat.
But no, I think I mentioned this at the end of last episode too. Like chocobo breeding gets a bad rap, and people talk about it as being terrible. And like I specifically avoided it this time. I did not want to do it.
Yeah.
But I was glad I did it the first time. Like I had, like Ben, the first time I played, I had a lot of fun with it. But that was back when I think we didn't. The methodology had not been refined to the point that they were like, you only need to do this many races. When I did it the first time, it was just like, you need to race every chocobo that you breed up to S rank. So I did that race way more than I needed to.
Oh God, it could be annoying. So Nathan Keeling writes in and just talks about how immersion breaking, the idea of doing this chocobo racing and weapon hunting all over the world as meteors supposedly crashing down.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's a game. I don't know. It's just part of like.
Yeah, Nathan,
game.
it's a game.
Yeah,
well,
think about it.
I mean, like I guess for me that works. It's just so much of a part of every RPG.
Yeah.
There's always the bad guys over here. This is the point of no return. If you have anything else you want to do,
right?
I mean, like even The Witcher 3 does that,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like, hey, this is where things start to get serious. So then you're like, oh well, I guess I better go. Ciri's in danger, but maybe I should go turn in some quests and play some Gwent. And I mean, like, it's
Gwent's
just
awesome. That's why
it's pervasive in the genre to the point that's like, I mean, I agree it's weird. I think it's an exaggeration to say like, oh, it's immersion breaking. Like it doesn't. I don't think it ruins the experience or takes you out of it any more than any other RPG.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna
world-
say Mass Effect 3 even, because like that's like, oh, the Reapers are invading Earth, and then you spend the whole game like doing all the side quests.
Yeah. Any weird planets I can mine for
Yeah, I
minerals
don't
while
know.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Or
So you finally got the gold chocobo. Was it satisfying?
It was. I mean, even just getting the blue and green ones so you could walk on water, it was like, oh man, now I can go over here, and then I forget which materia you get, but I know you need the gold one to get Knights of the Round, which is also really satisfying.
So it's been so long. Where do you get Knights of the Round again with the gold chocobo? How does that work?
It's in this like mountain, I don't know, cave or what you would call it, but you can't land your airship in there.
It's just a little volcano tip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like on the inside of it.
and
you have to
is that the one that's an island or is that a different one?
Yeah, it's its own island.
Yeah, so it's a
interesting.
tiny little like mountain island that you can't land on or anything.
How did I
And it's
miss
out in the
that?
middle of nowhere too, so you might not even see it unless you're like hunting for it.
Okay.
Like up on the top right, I think, of the map.
So the first time you set off Knights of the Round after all that training of the chocobo, were you just
You're like, oh my god, oh yeah. Me and
Tiger
my
Woods in it with
friends-
your fist? Like, yeah, look at it.
Me and my friends talked endlessly in the lunchroom about how cool Knights of the Round was and how cool it looked, and like it's the only one that has like multiple hits, I think, of the
Oh, yeah.
materia, and so
Summons.
yeah, of the summons, and so I mean, obviously, it's the best one to use against bosses like Ruby and Emerald Weapon.
I'm jealous because, God, I watched that animation so many times as a kid, and I didn't get to see it this playthrough, and so I'm jealous
You
that
didn't
you guys
use it at
experienced
all?
it. No, I didn't get it. Joe, you said you had a way to get it without doing all that crap?
Yeah, so it's been a little while since I played, but what I remember about doing it is that like because I very specifically wanted to avoid chocobo breeding, and you need the gold chocobo to get the Knights of the Round materia.
Materia.
But you also like on my first playthrough, it seemed to me that you also needed Knights of the Round to stand a chance against Emerald Weapon.
Sure.
So it's almost like it's almost like that cycle isn't even accessible unless you do it,
Right.
Unless you do the breeding. But thanks to God mode,
Oh, thank it.
that's not the case. So I was able to beat Emerald Weapon without getting Knights of the Round. And then I think you get an item from him. I don't remember what it is exactly, but you get an item that you turn into this like traveler guy in Calm. And I believe that's how you get like some master materia. So it's like when you have the master summon materia, that just has every summon on
Don't you
it.
get Master Summon from the huge materia in the Cosmo Canyon constellation thingy? I think that's where all the Master stuff is.
Oh, maybe that's where it is.
Yeah. I don't know how that interaction works though, and then exchange.
All I know is I got the master materia before the fight with Ruby Weapon.
Okay.
So then I was able to use the Hades Knights of the Round strategy on Ruby Weapon, and for beating Ruby Weapon, you get a gold chocobo. So then I was able to get the gold chocobo that way, and then go fetch Knights of the Round without having to go through the whole breeding process.
Do the old fetch quest. Got it. So Nathan Keeling also writes in and just says quickly, my favorite side stories for the end of the game would be Vincent's ultimate weapon, which I'm not sure which one that is exactly, and returning to Shinra Mansion, since it gives you extra backstory you would otherwise miss in the game.
Well, that's the one where you go under the waterfall and up into that cave and talk to his like.
Yeah, I think that's the.
Oh, then you get the weapon from that. I
think
never even saw Vincent in battle this playthrough, so I had no idea what item that was that I got from doing that. But Lucretia McEvil's little cave up there, the waterfall.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that section?
I really liked that, and I think it is the perfect example of the kind of potential that the FF7 remake has, because they touch on that relationship in Dirge of Cerberus a bit also, but like it's this weird sort of like Vincent has all these mysterious things about his past hinted at. You know,
wouldn't understand me.
You see a few cutscenes, or maybe it's only one, of like him wearing the Turk suit and stuff. And
right.
Like, wow, he used to be a Turk. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, he's like New Sephiroth's mom somehow.
They're in love, and yeah, Lucretia talks about in the cutscene how like Genova, she has like the Genova inside of her that won't let her rest, and then you get to see Hojo creating Vincent, turning him into a weirdo vampire thing. Like I'm very confused what happened there.
So he's kind of like Sephiroth's stepdad.
Sephiroth's stepdad.
Sephiroth's
yeah, I
stepdad,
think so. Yeah, you could see it that way.
No.
Okay.
But I feel like
Joe.
maybe it's one of those things that if you go through this game and just focus on this, I think there are interesting storylines with just Hojo and Gast. Mm-hmm. But it feels so spaced out, and I don't feel like I have a good grasp on like here's exactly what Gast was up to, how it related to Hojo, how they worked together. How
there's a degree of that's interesting. I think like I like the idea with Vincent especially. I think it works well of like giving a hint of his past without necessarily the need to like go into a 3-hour long like sequence, or like Red 13 to have a whole dungeon and cutscene all related to like everything he's doing. Like I think some of the ambiguity works well, but there are also times when like I think there's a difference between the fun of filling in the blanks yourself and then just feeling like you're missing something.
So you want just a little bit more from that waterfall.
I think you need a little bit. Well, and that one in particular, I remember liking that as a kid. I'm like, oh, cool. This is a cool backstory for Vincent, who I liked back then. And then going back and replaying it this time, I'm like, it is incredibly thin on content. Like it's like 2 exchanges, I feel like. And then you go back and there's nobody there and you just pick up the stuff.
Right, right.
I love how Vincent's like the fallen hero for like, or at least for Ben and I, who was like we were like, wow, like Vincent was one of my favorite characters when I played this the first time.
Yeah.
And this playthrough, I didn't use him at all.
Weird transforming hot topic piece of garbage.
Well, his limit break is just uncontrollable and terrible. But I used to think it was so great.
Yeah, he turns into like this
unique.
beast. It is unique. I like that. I mean, it's better than Kate Sith's, at least. But
watch your tongue. How dare you?
But
so he also
conversely,
mentions,
like Sid is like, I like him way more than I did originally. So it's just a weird, like some characters just resonate with you more depending on how old you are, maybe, or
Well, now you're a chain smoking astronaut, so you understand.
Well, yeah, I get it.
So he also mentions returning to Shinra Mansion, which is loosely connected to Vincent, I guess. But that is how you trigger the Zack and Cloud cutscene, which, as far as like optional stuff at the end of the game, I'd probably say is the most relevant, the most interesting. That's the one where you see, Zack and Cloud in the back of the truck. Yeah. Basically how they go become mercenaries. There's a funny scene where like, Zach's talking like, I want to start my own business. I feel like I can do anything. What do you think I should try, truck driver? And he's like, oh boy, you should just try everything. There's a lot of options out there. And he's like, that's it. I'm going to become a mercenary. I got it. And the truck driver's like, I don't think you listen to me. And then just completely talks over. It's a funny little bit of comedy in the middle of that whole sequence. And then everything turns out great for Zach, and we can just keep moving along.
He's out there somewhere, right?
That death scene is so much more brutal than I remember. Did you remember this, Reeves? Did you
No.
trigger this?
I don't think I triggered that.
I didn't do this on this playthrough.
Oh my God! You guys should definitely go
did
back
that-
and do it.
I remember that scene vaguely because I did it the first time around, but I didn't. It's something I totally forgot about actually.
Did you go
until
back
brought
and
it up.
did you go back and watch the Crisis Core scene yet,
No,
Hanson?
I'm a terrible host. I didn't do it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right.
But it shows that exact scene.
Well, talk about what's in FF7 first.
Okay, so in
and then-
7, it's just like, hey, we're going to go to Midgard, be mercenaries. It's going to be so much fun. High five forever. Woo, big swords
Woo,
rule.
we're the best.
And then it just like jumps to them outside of Midgard and like
Freeze frame.
crawling up.
the air?
That's right. No, they're like crawling up on the side of this cliff. And Cloud is clearly hurt. I think Zack actually might be hauling him. And then like the Shinra soldiers come up and basically throw Zack to the ground and then just take their machine guns right over Zack's body. Just unload inches from him. And then they walk away and they're like, what about this guy? Pointing at Cloud. And they're like, forget about him. He's fine.
He's garbage.
He's garbage and he knows it. And then it's like, it's really good. And then it has a moment where Cloud like crawls up to Zack's riddled corpse. You know, it's a polygon, you know. And then does like the classic, no, without voice acting, where he just like looks up at the sky. And then the camera just tilts up and you see Midgard in the distance. And it's just like a really beautiful shot. Really well done.
Yeah.
And so then that links to where he shows up and Tifa finds him. Is that what happens right after that?
no.
Is that what's implied?
No. And then after that, God, what? I forget how like off the train with Tifa? you mean?
Yeah.
It would be after that, yeah, but I don't know exactly how that links up. It doesn't like tighten it perfectly.
Yeah, the idea is it's not like 10 minutes later Cloud and Tifa meet up, I don't think. But the implication is that like not long ago Cloud came into town messed up.
Right. He also grabbed Zack's sword at that point. But what happens in Crisis Core then? Do you get to see that?
Yeah. Yeah, you see that scene.
I want to see how they render that.
The death is different. I mean, it's
It's like the beginning of
Food
RoboCop.
poisoning?
seriously, you should like right after we're done recording this, you should just go watch it.
Okay.
It's bit by a rattlesnake, I think, is what happens.
And Cloud has to suck the poison out of his butt. So Paul Swears says, before I start the end, I always go trigger the Zack cutscene. And I go to this spot near Midgar that's a cliff, like overlooking Midgar, which kind of resembles the spot where he died.
Yep.
So it's like
Oh,
it's on the world
interesting.
map. And he says he sits there with his chocobo, and then he goes right for the northern cave. It's pretty nerdy, but whatever, video games.
No.
That's actually
I
kind of
like
cool.
it.
Just
Yeah.
to stop and think about Zack dying.
Get yourself pumped up for that. Yeah.
I will avenge thee.
Get some revenge going in your veins.
Absolutely. So Matt from Akron, he writes in, he says, I finished it! Exclamation point. What a huge undertaking. Sorry. When Meteor was about to crash, I revisited every place I could remember and talked to every NPC I could find.
Wow.
They all had different dialogue about how they're going to spend their final days. It was an awesome touch that must have been a lot of work, but made the threat feel authentic and global and real. Thank you for doing the game club. Let's do it again.
Final Fantasy VII again?
Yeah, we're just going to start this over.
yeah.
Go again and again and again. Yeah, I do love, everybody's dialogue about basically saying F it or, we can get through this. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's fun seeing people, brace the end of the world. And there's a lot of that.
Also, a sort of optimistic take on humanity in the sense that if just impending global destruction was there, like there's no way people would still be just like chilling out in their towns, going about their daily. There'd just be riots and murders all over the place.
What would you do, Joe?
Well, that's your take on it.
I'd hang around in my town.
I'd sell Phoenix Downs slowly.
Yeah.
It's kind of my thing.
I'd start eating them. Just hoping they take effect if I die.
One of my favorite places to go is Cosmo Canyon, where you get to see a little wrap up to the Bugenhagen storyline. He talks about like the NPCs, Matt from Akron here, talks about NPCs having customized dialogue. It's weird because you go there and all the characters in the town in Cosmo Canyon still talk about like, oh, Bugenhagen, we need him. I can't imagine life without him. Then you go trigger the cutscene where he dies-ish, and then the dialogue doesn't change.
Yeah.
I agree that they do a good job of like customized dialogue.
We need Bugenhagen. And it's like, yeah. Goodbye. So I gotta go.
Right. We won't talk about that. But
See you tomorrow.
I forgot that you don't really see him die. He's lying on the couch and he says like, ho ho. Bleh. He tells Red 13 to like go out and live life and experience things because he'll add it to the live stream in the end. It's a nice little sentiment. But you see Nanaki kind of like crying about it. And then he just walks down to the Eternal Flame where Cloud and the rest of the party's hanging out.
Yep.
And then Red doesn't explain what happened. He's like, Bugenhagen really liked riding on the high wind, so he went for another ride around the world. All right, let's go.
I think Red 13 ate him. I think that's what happened.
It's like
That's
if you
why he doesn't
die with a
say it.
cat, it'll
Yeah.
eventually eat you in your apartment.
That's what happened.
He hasn't eaten this entire game. Now that I think about it.
Have you seen it? No.
And you can like roast him first with his little tail,
That's
then
true.
just go for a good old bite.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, maybe they're just trying to emphasize how young Red 13 kind of sort of is, that like he wasn't open to talking about his grandpa dying, and so he has to kind of cover it up by saying, hey, he's just flying around the world again.
Also, was it clear
In
that
hell.
that's not his biological dad? Like, do they?
No. What do you
But
think,
the-
that's Cito's dad? You idiot. What are you talking
No, his
about?
mom. We never see his mom.
Wait,
I
a little
don't know.
flaming stub on his little floaty platform?
Oh, I always thought Ultimate Weapon was his dad.
I want him to be my dad.
You dingus. But talking about like customized dialogue again, I like that when you go back to, God, I forget if it's Wall Market. It's not. It's Sector 7 slums. And one of those towns in Midgard you can go back to. There's a person in the town outside of like this little like culver thing that you can go inside of. Culvert? Yeah, culvert.
Culvers, yeah.
Culvers, Butterburgers that you can go inside of. Anyways, and they say like, oh man, that was crazy. This person walked out muttering something about Genova, reunion, yada, yada, yada. And then you go inside the culvert, which is where somebody was super sick early in the game. They're like, ooh, my stomach. And they're not there. And so in theory, that person it became a Sephiroth clone? Is that a
Yeah.
stretch? Okay, you think that's...
Oh no, I mean, like that's not even. That is exactly what happened. Is that
Okay.
the guy who was sick in that little like pipe
Yeah.
was like one of the like had somehow been like Mako treated or experimented on and was like one of the marching reunion.
That is such a long haul.
That's a long haul.
Does it go along the bottom of the ocean? What do they do? It's like Land of the Dead?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, Randolph
That
Sparks.
is cool, though. I
Yeah.
just never realized that connection.
Also, I mean, in Midgar, you get to see Ares' ghost in the church. And you
Oh,
go into
yeah,
the
yeah,
church
yeah.
and it just like quickly fades out. I don't know if there's another ghost cutscene.
There's those kids playing there, too.
Right, like, playing with the ghost.
They're like, yeah, that's right.
Randolph Sparks writes in
You
and
can watch
says,
that movie, The Ring, in there. And
it's really great. Why the hell do your battle points just disappear when you leave the battle square in Gold Saucer?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
oh my gosh. And that pissed me off really bad, too, because I I had saved up enough to like buy Omni Slash or something.
Yeah.
Something big. And the analog controls, I don't know, they're frustrating. And so I accidentally walked too far down and out of the ring. And I'm like, oh crap. And I got him back. I'm like, well, it's not gone, right? I have to actually like leave. And
Yeah.
then, nope, they're gone. If you leave that screen, they are gone.
And it takes a while, even at 3 times speed, to build up enough
Yep.
for Omni Slash,
Yeah,
which
it
is
was-
Cloud's final limit break, which is awesome.
I had,
Yeah.
to put the game down for a night after that. Like,
yeah,
But
yeah.
throwing out the window.
Because there are lots of fights against Proud Claude or whatever that you're going through that are like it takes a long
it
time.
takes a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of grinding to do that. It was kind of fun. It's like, oh, I cheated my way through it. Like you wouldn't believe. It's like, all right, I'm going to use Meteor Rain, which I used to call Matorian as a kid, which is just idiotic.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So I used Matorian and I'd use Finishing Touch just over and over and over and over again and just listen to podcasts. And that's my kind of gaming.
There you go.
That's what I'm on board for. And then you get Omni Slash, which is just great.
which is really good.
I mean, undeniably the best limit break in the game.
Yes, I think that's very fair.
I don't know.
Cloud's High Wind, not Cloud's, Sid's High Wind also does a lot of damage. It's one of those multi attack ones.
And then Barrett's is only the third one, right?
I've heard some people say that it can do, I think it's a little more random, but it can do more damage than Omni Slash. But I think for consistency, like Omni Slash is like the highest dealing damage.
Yeah. And
At the limit break in the game.
satellite beam is a good one also, Barrett's.
It's not that effective. I mean, it does 9,000 or something, but I like Red 13's Cosmo Memory. It's like kind of this weird
Yeah,
cosmic
it looks
vibe.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
sweet.
Kate Sith's dice.
Shut up.
He rolls some dice. I don't know what he
Oh,
does.
gosh,
Just
it's
lays
so
out
good
a
with those
cardboard
dice.
mat and has you flip a cup or
It's
some
actually
crap.
no, it's slots. That's his big one.
Wait, so that's like Tifa's thing then?
I don't know. I don't remember exactly. I didn't use it,
Right.
but like Kate Sith only has 2 limit breaks. Like he has dice as his level 1 and slots as his level 2, and he doesn't have 3 or 4.
Slot
How
shaming.
many does Eris have?
All of them.
Wow. So you got to get her all the way up to 4 before the first. That seems
Yep.
like crazy.
Her big one is Great Gospel, which like gives you temporary invulnerability and completely restores your hit points.
I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
Aaron Gutchess writes in and says, Juba was talking about there being more weapons than you fight in the game and says Sapphire is one. He is correct. Sapphire is the weapon that gets its head blown off by the Junon cannon. Diamond, Ultima, Emerald, and Ruby are the other 4 you fight in the game, obviously. There are 2 more, though, in the expanded universe. Jade Weapon is a bug-like weapon introduced in Before Crisis. Omega Weapon is the last resort weapon introduced in Dirge of Cerberus. I did not know about the expanded universe weapons.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like they were somehow alluded to or mentioned or something previously.
Oh yeah,
or maybe Jade Weapon at least.
Okay,
and then sort of fleshed out in those other things. I could be wrong about.
Sure.
That,
I always thought it was weird that Ultima Weapon was like kind of one of the weakest ones because like Emerald and Ruby are way more powerful and harder to defeat.
But what made Ultima difficult was just how stupid it was with its flying pattern.
Yeah, that was really...
And you're following it around the world and trying not to lose it, where it's just like constantly zigzagging, like changing its mind. It's the most indecisive. It's the Woody Allen of weapons out there, flying over the ocean. We're just trying to figure out where this dumb thing's going to land.
Part of what I loved about that, I've talked about Final Fantasy VI a lot on this Game Club and what I love about it, but like part of what I love about that is it reminded me a little bit of Death Gaze from FF6.
Oh, do you like Death Gaze? This has never come up.
I'm a big fan of Death Gaze, which is that's the monster that attacks your airship as you fly around.
Right.
It's like a random encounter.
Right.
So like I like the idea of this this just like terrifying beast in the sky that you need to fly over and try and take.
I think that works really well. I love having weapons just in the overworld overall. Like it's so cool to have this thing that I'm genuinely scared of. Ultima, not so much, but like I was just
man, Emerald Weapon down. Like if you're trying to do anything under the ocean and that green thing's there, you're like, oh god.
Oh,
it's an awesome feeling. Like I had that where I was training in the sub, in the crashed airplane, whatever it is, the Shinra plane, and then like came out of that and just Emerald right in my face. Like, oh, good Christ. I nearly dropped the controller. Like, I'm so petrified of that thing. And then I went in and I fought that and Ruby just to remind myself what it was like. And I thought, like, maybe with cheating I can just, nope, just immediately died both times.
Really?
I did the same thing as like I was looking forward to like the very first time in the story that you get in the submarine and like go down there, Emerald Weapon's down there. And I was like, man, he was so hard. I bet with God mode enabled, I could just beat him right now, first time through. And he just does like one big stomp, and everyone's just done. No,
but you beat both of them, Reeves? Or
I did not beat Ruby.
Okay,
that was my goal, but and I actually still want to because I never beat Ruby the first time. So I want to finally finish that off. But
what was Emerald like for you?
I mean, after you do all the preparation, it's not too bad. It's a bit of a grind because it takes a while, but
Ruby Weapon is actually the easier of the two, but it's just needs a lot more like coordination for it because like there are very specific things you need for the Ruby Weapon fight. You have to go into it with 2 party members down. Because otherwise he sandstorms them and then they're gone the whole time. So you go into it with 2
Do you like this kind of stuff where you have to like get so nitpicky with like these specific setups and whatnot?
I loved it at the time initially because like I think that the evolution of this idea is the kind of thing that we see in games like Dark Souls now, where it's like you go into a fight, you do some trial and error, you figure out what you need, and then you go into it with that kind of preparation. I feel like the game mechanics weren't all there to really support that style at the time, so you just had to look up a strategy guide and be like, here's how you have to do it. But so you go into it with one person standing, have them immediately, so then Ruby Weapon will immediately like put his tentacles down. And then you revive those 2 people, and then that's when you start the Hades.
What is the Hades thing? Why Hades?
Hades casts stop as like it's a bunch of status effects, but stop or slow. I think it's stop is the one you want. So then that basically stops all of the retaliation because Ruby Weapon has built in like automatic counters for like Knights of the Round and Ultima. So, or maybe it's just maybe he counters Knights of the Round with Ultima. Anyway,
cool.
Point being, when you stop him, he can't use his counter.
Okay.
So you need to do that first and then do Knights of the Round. And
Hades is more effective than just casting stop?
Yeah, Hades is like a guaranteed, like it'll do it.
Oh, okay.
So then if you get that going and then you just get it miming again and again and again, you can basically just get it caught in a cycle, like get Ruby Weapon caught in a cycle, and it's not a problem.
Is that one where people recommend using the Lucky Sevens trick too? Do you guys use Lucky Sevens?
No, I didn't this time. The very first time I beat Emerald Weapon, I did the
Which
Lucky
one was
Sevens
that?
trick.
I don't know if I've ever seen Lucky Sevens. Now that I think about it, but it's basically if you have 7,777 health.
Yep.
Then what? Cloud just goes in infinite Omni Slash. What happens?
The character that has 7,777 health, which you set up by, I forget exactly how it works. There are various ways to like get it going, but like you get it set up so then you use a potion right before you get like 7,727 hit points.
Right.
Use some item that gives you 50 hit points and then immediately enter the battle. So then it triggers this like lucky 7 state.
Yeah.
The character that's in lucky 7s attacks 77 times for 7,777 damage each time.
That's so awesome. I've never seen it. Does any other Final Fantasy do anything like that? Like with the number of Final Fantasy incorporated so heavily into some gameplay trick?
I don't think so.
It's really unique and really interesting.
Does that work really well for the weapons?
It works. It doesn't. I don't remember why. I remember it not being very effective against Ruby weapon. It is effective against Emerald weapon, but it takes forever.
Yeah.
Like I had it. It was. I remember specifically it was Barrett that I had doing it when I first beat Emerald weapon years ago, and like it takes. It's especially hard if the fight doesn't go your way and you lose, and then you have to do it again because of course you saved right before the fight, but it's just like watching a character attack that many times, like dozens of times, takes forever.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they take turns. It's you stand up and just bam, bam, bam. Again, it takes long.
Fun. So Nick from Utah writes in and says, "Hey friends, love the game club, love the podcast. Thank you, Nick. We love you. The weirdest experience I ever had in Final Fantasy VII was when I forgot to equip the underwater materia while attacking the Emerald weapon. I had cast Knights of the Round. The eon-long summon animation, which I love, by the way, wrapped up just as my oxygen timer reached 0. Emerald died and it faded to black. The combat victory screen and game over screen came up simultaneously in alternating vertical lines of pixels from each of the two screens, while the music associated with each screen played together at the same time, creating audible madness.
Whoa.
I sat there stunned, staring at the garbled mess on the screen. I pressed a few buttons and was brought to the start screen. I went straight back to Emerald to equip the underwater materia, killing it, but the result of my first attempt was way more memorable."
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good
crazy,
story,
man. I
like
didn't know that was a thing. But if people out there want to test it and time it and make sure there's not some Baba Booey emailer, then please let us know. Cool. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Oh, the Ultima weapon. Forgot to mention, when it blows up, you finally get access to the mysterious little ancient forest. Otherwise known as that dumb forest.
That dumb forest.
You talk about like needing very specific plans for taking the weapons. Like I would take that over the stupid like over the reason the forest is so dumb to me is that like you have a very specific order that you need to do things to like to maximize, like to get all the treasure there.
Sure.
Right? Which I'm fine with. I kind of like that puzzle element, if not for the fact that you also are getting into random encounters while you're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Can you go and redo it if you screwed up the first time?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think you
so.
can go back in there. But like the point being is just like random encounters are annoying enough when you're like just trying to get someplace to do a story. But when you're like experimenting with the puzzles in the way you need to, it's a huge pain to have to like do a bunch of fights along the way. I turned off random encounters there and enjoyed that forest so much more this time versus my first time, because it was just like, I don't have to deal with that crap.
I didn't even get through it. I saw it on the world map, but I didn't remember how you got to it. And then when Ultima explodes, it's like, aha, that's right. It makes that weird ramp. Then I went in there and it's like, okay, I put a frog in this Venus flytrap. All right, I'm not dealing with this crap. See ya. I'm going to go cheat my way through the ending.
I remember, that was what's weird is I remember getting Cloud's ultimate weapon in that forest.
You do get a Cloud weapon.
But that's not the case. It's a different weapon you get there. But you already have the ultimate weapon from beating ultimate weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But the one in the forest has like triple AP points or whatever.
Yeah, that's his triple growth weapon.
Yeah. You know, his triple growth weapon. Everybody knows that.
Is there anything else in there that was super good?
You get a gun for Vincent, I believe, on the first screen, something like that. What do you guys think of the Northern Crater?
Yeah, I was going to say, we've talked a lot about this and not actually the
actual content.
Yeah.
It was longer than I remember. I don't know why. So I had a weird phenomenon when I first played Final Fantasy. Is I played through to the third disc the first time through, and then it sat on a shelf for like 8 months. And then I was like, I need to go back and beat this. And then I like went back and beat it in like one sitting. So it was just a weird like disconnect. So it was kind of fun to like see the actual flow of the game this time. And But anyway, for some reason, maybe because I played that way, I don't remember that last area being that long because comparatively, when I went in,
You say that long. I mean, it's not. It's more screens than you imagine, but it's still maybe 12, 15 screens ultimately.
It takes a while.
Sure.
And I had forgotten about you splitting up different characters to go different ways.
Yeah.
And then you get stuff from them. And I'm sure there's a way to min-max it, but like...
There is. I didn't do it, but I looked up the guide and I was like, oh, wow. You can very specifically send people in ways to like double up on certain items.
But then you can go that path that they went and pick up the treasure chest. Because I went those paths and it's like some chests are open, some aren't.
But the idea is like they can get an item for you, but then you can go back and get it yourself. So it's actually possible to double up on some of those items, which is where the min-maxing comes in.
item.
But
All right, got it.
It's funny. I had the opposite experience to Ben. Is like I remembered that dungeon just being so long and so complicated, and like I went back into it and I was like, that was actually super fat. Like,
what were you talking about in the last episode about like dropping a save point?
Yeah, apparently there are just glitches and like there are known glitches depending on like how and where you drop your save point.
What do you mean drop the save point?
Yeah, I never saw anything
that
about
option.
Dropping a save point.
What? You get an item like right away.
From who?
It's like on that. It's either the first or second screen.
I saw there's some materia thing that I couldn't get. Is that what it is? I bet that is.
It's not materia.
I know, but it looks like it on the world map. It's not like it's in a treasure chest, right?
Maybe, probably not. I guess I don't remember exactly, but it's like super early. You get an item that when you use the item, it creates a save point wherever you use it.
I wish I would have gotten that dumb thing then and had one right at the end so I could experiment and watch the ending again and whatnot.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So I spent so much time in the Northern Crater just like doing the grinding that I explored every nook and cranny of it and was super surprised. Like, man, I remembered there being I remembered that you went off in different paths, but I remembered it being so much more, like the paths being so much longer. And instead they're like a couple screens and then they rejoin again.
Totally.
Did you turn off combat encounters though?
So, I mean, sometimes I actually left it on for most of the Northern Crater just because like I had such fond memories of like the enemies there and like
weirdo dragon things. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I finally this is one of my dumb Northern Crater stories. I finally rectified something that I had never done correctly before. There is a bug in this game that ensures that the enemy skill Pandora's Box is only ever used once. So like the zombie dragon can cast Pandora's Box.
Okay.
But there's some weird glitch that means that once it uses it, it sets some variable to like off so that it will never ever use it again.
That's badass.
So you basically have one chance in the whole game if you want to learn like Pandora's Box for yourself that I had on previous playthroughs always missed. The playthrough before it, that was so frustrating was that like I wanted to make sure that I got it so much that I like that in the fight with the dragon, it went on too long and the dragon like expended all of its MP. So when it used Pandora's Box, it counted as using it, but it didn't actually cast it because it didn't have the MP for it.
Oh,
anyway,
weird.
Point being, I actually got Pandora's Box this time, and it is not as great as I remembered it. It's like a big dumb question mark that like floats in space. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture of that. Yeah. It looks bizarre.
Yeah.
So talking about like splitting up the team, it's a little bit frustrating. And maybe the game was trying to coach us with this, just with shifting up protagonists so often and like inserting some people into your party. But I feel like I would have liked the heads up earlier that like, by the way, you should care about all your characters. Isn't it everybody's like natural gravitational pull just to like pick the three and just care about them, and then everybody else like I don't want to deal with their material, I don't want to deal with their equipment.
I thought it tried to hint at like, hey, you might end up using these guys in a subtle way. You didn't get that
earlier on? No.
I mean, if nothing else, though, it like that fight, you need it on the Bizarro Sephiroth fight, and like at that, like it never stood out as a problem for me because I always had Knights of the Round at that point, which just like ends that fight instantly, basically. So like it never bothered me.
Okay. All right. Hey, teach their own. So talking about Sephiroth and the ending and all this stuff, there's kind of some broader picture stuff, but it's a good time to talk about Sephiroth, the figure. So Tanner writes in and says, when I first played the game, I was really confused and missed a lot of the details, but it didn't matter to me because I was more preoccupied with saving the world than Cloud's mental state. However, I read this wonderful post on a message board explaining the story, and now it is clear to me why the story is so confusing. We basically have two unreliable narrators between Cloud and Sephiroth. It taught me how Sephiroth's body was actually killed by Cloud before the story begins, and the whole game is him controlling the alien shape-shifting group of cells known as Jenova through the live stream. It has some creepy implications in this story, like how the party is in prison and Sephiroth kills everyone around them. What actually happened is he possessed the headless body of Jenova, made it take his appearance, and walked around murdering everybody in sight while they slept. It's pretty messed up. Anyways, I think there is some cool science fiction stuff going on in 7, even if it is presented in a confusing way. Just to get all this out of the way, Aaron Gutchus writes in and says, is Sephiroth the one in control of or Jenova? In control or Jenova? I mean, probably Sephiroth, but I always felt that it was Jenova using Sephiroth, making Jenova the actual big bad. And then Chad from Boston writes in and says, hey, I love your Game Club podcast, but I just wanted to correct one thing you guys said regarding the Shinra headquarters incident where you say Sephiroth took Jenova out of the chamber. Sephiroth throughout the whole game is in the live stream, and you never actually see the actual Sephiroth until you Omni-slash him. However, he has control over Jenova, and Jenova can shapeshift. So when Palmer said he saw Sephiroth, this is technically true, but it was actually Jenova shapeshifted as Sephiroth being controlled by Sephiroth in the live stream. So is it correct that you never see Sephiroth until the Omni-slash fight with their shirts off?
No.
Okay.
You see Sephiroth encased in materia.
Yeah, I was
Right,
just gonna
right.
ask about that scene.
You like that is Sephiroth's body. You see him there.
So what do you think about the Jenova versus Sephiroth real big bad thing?
That one, I guess I'd say like Jenova to me doesn't feel like the mastermind behind this whole thing. Jenova feels like a kind of like a dormant weapon, like like
She's the power source.
yeah,
maybe?
like
Okay.
like I think that her time to be a catastrophe, like she was already a catastrophe. Her time is over.
Sure.
And so she's sort of like a just sort of like a diffused bomb that Sephiroth is now sort of like making active again. You
Right.
know, like
Sounds like Lindsay Lohan.
topical.
Ha 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 ha.
Go on, Joe. I don't know what...
So anyway, so that's my take on that. Is like I think Sephiroth is very clearly this sort of like driving malevolent force of this whole thing, and that Jenova, while not it is just sort of his means to that, isn't really like pulling any strings.
Right.
And this is actually so this is the first time I'm hearing of the like shape-shifting Jenova cells and
They
stuff
do...
like that.
They mention it at some point. I remember writing it down in my notes that they mentioned at some point that Jenova's cells can make you change your appearance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get that. To me, it doesn't make sense that like every time you see Sephiroth, it's this like headless Jenova body, though.
You think he's
because,
so
like,
powerful it's some external...
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about it as some
Yeah.
sort of like projection or something
Right,
before, which
right.
to me makes a lot more sense of like why he's like appearing out of nowhere and floating through walls and stuff like that versus like an actual. I don't see the need to make like Sephiroth's incarnation an actual physical thing,
Sure.
but whatever.
I mean, do you guys consider him an unreliable narrator?
Sephiroth? I mean, he doesn't really narrate.
Yeah, that's what I always thought was weird. Is like, I get Cloud is
Right.
unreliable, but
I think instead of unreliable narrator, I think what you have are like Cloud is definitely unreliable, but for Sephiroth, he's just like telling one side of the story, you know,
sure.
and
Yeah.
he himself
He's a politician.
doesn't know everything. Like, there's a part where Sephiroth thinks Jenova is an ancient, and it's not that he's like lying or being unreliable. He's just misinformed. He doesn't know.
Right. Yeah, for
at
sure.
that point.
Everyone's
Yeah.
very confused about what's
Makes sense.
happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I loved going into that final fight. I forgot about that, like everybody floating around the big glowing orb and all that stuff. I forgot about the great moment where Cloud says right before you go into that final area, like, "Let's mosey everybody." Then Sid's like,
Yeah.
"Stop saying that, you idiot!" Like even at the end, they're still like, "Shut up, Cloud." Oh, you're the worst.
So this stuck out for me in that moment where they're all like floating around meteor,
Yeah.
or holy rather. Is
Right.
that like I get this a lot in RPGs where like you have your scrappy little party who's out there to like save the world and beat the bad guy. And never more than in Final Fantasy do I feel like, wow, we should just lose this fight.
We got a dumb cat, a robot.
Well, and just he's just sort of floating there doing nothing, and he's just like bending them over in pain and like sending out these shock waves of energy. Like it just seems like he should be able to obliterate them instantly. And
I don't know. Yuffie's there, and she talks about, I don't know about this materia. I really want some of that. She has some really committed line at the end, so she's pretty pumped up.
Barrett's got a gun on his arm.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Tifa can slap hard.
Oh my gosh, she's got gloves.
I feel like there are lots of games where like there's a satisfying sense of like them building up your character's sort of ascent to power and being able to challenge the bad guy. And in Final Fantasy VII, I didn't get there. In Final Fantasy VII, we got to Sephiroth, and I felt like, well, from everything I know about my guys and everything I know about Sephiroth, this should be a very one-sided fight in his favor.
Charles from South Carolina wrote in and actually mentioned that. He says, kudos for choosing the absolute perfect game for the first game club. Thank you. My only wish is that it could be drawn out into more episodes. Final Fantasy VII has always struck me as a very genuine story of the power of the spirit to overcome seemingly insurmountable physical forces. This is seen as early as Cloud's backstory, throwing Sephiroth over the edge, and culminates with his defeat of Sephiroth at the Northern Crater. Even though Hojo eventually calls Cloud his only successful clone, he eventually surpasses even the original himself. I see it peppered throughout the rest of the story as well. The physically unimpressive Cetra defeating the almost supernaturally powerful Genova, the planet's innate life stream rising to dispel the impending doom of the falling meteor. The only one who seems to recognize this truth to some degree is Sephiroth himself when he targets and kills Eris. I admit that this is a common theme across many other forms of media. However, I think few who have played 7 can deny how special it is and its ability to truly draw you in and cause you to really invest, even weathering it to the test of time. This failed clone's rise to greatness, aided by the help of his friends old and new, is a truly moving underdog story and delves deep into the spirits within humankind.
The spirits within.
P.S. I can't put in a big enough endorsement for Crisis Core. Check it out. So he enjoyed the underdog, but you see it as silly, or do you also enjoy like that angle of like this ragtag group is going to take on a god?
For me, it's the same way that like the immersion breaking. It's the same immersion breaking angle from before. Is that like I'm playing an RPG. The good guys need to defeat the bad guy, and on some level, like that's cool. Mm-hmm. But when you sort of do the sort of like the step back and like let's think about this logically for a second. I don't think the party wins that fight.
Sure, especially when one of Sephiroth's moves involves blowing up the Earth. Christopher Bartlett writes in and says, "Man, the final bosses may have been incredibly easy, but that supernova animation made me jealous. I want to summon a supernova too. Doesn't the sun kind of explode in that animation though? I know it's just an animation, but shouldn't the world be totally screwed?"
Yeah,
it was cool.
I like when it goes through Jupiter and makes like the bloop little hole and then Jupiter explodes. Also, it's that confusing bit about, wait, so the world of 7 is
This
Earth?
is Earth?
Yeah,
and then also, if that fight goes on, Sephiroth can cast Supernova multiple times. So I don't know what's going on there.
Bad, but there's also like some summons you do where it's like, man, that seems like it would affect the planet as well.
That would have massive atmospheric implications for a whatever, like the Bahamut laser.
Yeah, Bahamut Zero.
You know, like in 15, how Ramu, like he's like actually in the world actually casting it, whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if they put Supernova into 15 so we could see like with that level of like rendered detail exactly what's happening there and whether or not it's still Earth, how everything works there.
What's funny is like, because Joe's talking about like, oh, story-wise, we should totally get destroyed, but like actual gameplay, it's kind of easy to walk over Sephiroth in that. Like, just because, maybe it was because I like trained up my dudes to like attack
your cool dudes.
Weapons.
Yeah,
and they're really cool dudes. But like that last boss fight wasn't super hard at all.
I'm with you. I went in being like, I'm ready to cheat my way through this. I think I tapped like the limit break thing once, which obviously gives you Omni Slash, so it's a little bit one-sided. But I was amazed at how easy that was. I was bracing for the worst. Like basically he turns Red 13 into a frog and then confuses Yuffie. That's about all he did for me.
If you get one of your characters up to level 99, that I don't remember exactly how it affects it, but like it may. There's basically like a trigger in the game. It's like, oh, you're level 99. We better make the last boss way harder.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
So did you do that then?
Not this time I didn't.
Okay. Huh.
So like I said, it was a long time ago. I don't remember exactly what, but like they definitely make like Sephiroth's final form more difficult if you have a max level character.
I forgot about the weird wormhole thing then for the real fight or the second fight, which is awesome in theory, just having Cloud versus Sephiroth and having just like the heartbeat Sephiroth theme going. And it just seems like they up the volume on all the sound effects and getting to hear Omni/Triggered and just pay attention to the sound design so much. I love that moment. Man, Joe?
I totally blew that moment. So like,
what? How do you blow that? You have like one option.
You have one option, and I was like, I was savoring it because I was like, man, this is the end. This is my platinum trophy that's coming through here. Like, because I'd saved the actual beating the game for last two. So it's
okay.
Like, I'm like, and I remembered this moment as being so cool. I'm like, I'm going to really savor this. But if you wait too long, Sephiroth attacks. And Cloud just counterattacks.
Oh, so with like, Omni/Slash?
No,
just
with
a normal.
Oh, so any attack will kill him?
Yeah. So it's just like so Sephiroth came up and slashed me, and then Cloud immediately just went, huh. The end, and then like bloody Sephiroth cutscene, and it was totally anticlimactic and a huge disappointment.
Speaking of anticlimactic, I feel bad because if people are watching this on YouTube, I upload my gameplay, and that's my gameplay there on the left-hand side of the screen. But the Aeris death scene and also the entire ending cutscene, they block recording.
Yeah.
I was like, this game's so old, so I wasn't able to capture it. So sorry, we're not showing it and whatnot. But you get to see at least the final fight.
It's
but even
probably
like
on YouTube, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, but even like you can, yes, I guarantee you can look it up on YouTube. But even like traveling through the wormholes, through the stargates to go find old Sephiroth there with his shirt off, like even that you can't capture. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, that's weird.
I forgot about the Highwind transforming again when Sid's like. And like grabs the lever and pulls it. It's awesome. And it's like, oh yeah, sure. Here's the fourth transformation of this dumb thing.
Why not?
Yep.
Yeah.
I had also forgotten how bouncy they'd made Tifa until.
What do you mean?
So,
She holds herself up on the ledge with her boobs.
Yeah. I'd remembered. I mean, she's obviously got a large chest, but I had forgotten how ridiculous that all the animation surrounding that was in that final
She's
sequence.
just really ripped.
Beyond the ending fight, though, like even like her battle victory pose where she literally just like leans back and sticks out her boobs. Like, Jesus Christ, you guys, come on. That entire ending cutscene, it's cool. I think there's too many ups and downs in terms of like, oh, Meteor's coming, but Holy's come to save it. Oh, but wait, Holy's not doing enough. Oh, but the Life Sphere's come to save it. It's like, just give us one twist. That's enough.
Yeah.
But I forgot how awkward it feels. No voice acting and like the sound design. I think it's a low point throughout all of 7 is the sound design during cutscenes is always minimalist and a little bit too quiet. It just feels uncomfortable and really dated, not having the minimalist sound design.
Right, it feels like a game that's almost 20 years old. I agree.
Yeah, some would say.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think what's weird is that we could look back on that now and see it as sort of like falling short.
Right.
And at the time, just based on what it was doing, even with this, like even with the sound the way it was just amazing.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's weird to go back to, but I mean, that was not a shortcoming at the time. At the time, your jaw was just on the floor through every cutscene.
Yeah, and I love the look of that ending. Like I love the green life stream and blue Holy and red Meteor. And there's even a great shot which I love where they just cut to Cosmo Canyon real quick, and you just see Midgar in the distance. Also, I love the idea of Meteor traveling, millions of light years, wherever the hell this thing comes from, finally gets to its destination and then just like unleashes a bunch of tornadoes. It's like, right, just pulls up stop right at the end. But it's kind of beautiful to think of Meteor going for Midgar and that, Aeris with Holy and all that stuff and with the live stream that like Midgar is the thing worth defending in the end. I mean, obviously it's the entire planet, but I like
it's not that Midgar is worth defending. It's that Midgar is the thing worth destroying.
I guess it is with the 500 years later thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your read on the 500 years later?
I think they're just like, well, Red 13 is old. Like, let's show how old he is.
Brilliant.
I do not understand that scene other than like, oh yeah, he's old. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I kept wanting to know what happened to my characters.
Right.
Okay. So
maybe they died.
My read on that, and I think that they've clarified this a little bit in the years since. to indicate that like it's maybe a happier ending than I thought. I actually loved it when I first played it because I thought it was a grim ending. Like for me, because they're all like, what's going to happen? We have to let the planet decide. And then at the end, all you see is Red 13. You don't see any, like, you only see that species. You don't see any humans.
Adam Clark writes in, he says, I always assumed it meant wholly judged humans, not good for the planet, and eliminated everyone until Advent Children and Dirge Cerberus came along. Now I have no idea what to make of it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think that specifically negates that theory because, like, who knows what happens in the, 495 years between Advent Children and that cutscene.
So Holy in the live stream come back out and just like wipe everybody out.
We changed our mind.
I don't think it's a sense of like instantaneous. Like I don't think it's like, well, Holy decides, everyone dies.
Right.
I think maybe it's like, people need the planet. Like, people live in harmony with the planet, right? So what if the planet just sort of stops giving to them? Over time, it's going to, like, they're gonna thin out.
Right. I do love the ambiguous ending if you want to read it as that, but there are like the sounds of like kids laughing after it fades out with Red 13 and his kids, grandchildren.
Maybe those are just his kids?
This sounds like humans unless he trained. I guess he can talk, so maybe they can giggle and whatnot. It's just a bunch of Red 13s.
Yeah.
The obvious joke is who does Red 13 make sweet love to create all these children if he's the last of his kind?
Lindsay Lohan?
There you
Grow
go.
up. Eris's corpse. Hojo finally got his sick wish.
Yeah, I did wonder that actually, because I always thought like he was the last of his kind. I'm like, how is he making kids then?
Yeah, how does he make
Was
the
he the
babies?
last?
How
Were
are
they
babies
specific
made?
that he was the last of his kind, or just the last of his tribe?
Oh, good question.
It could be, but you never see another one. I just always assumed he was the last of his kind.
Yeah, we
whether or
scoured
not
that
they-
entire world, literally, Joe.
Look,
There's not another
Joe,
Red 13
there's not another
weirdo
one.
thing.
There's no Red 14.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, so maybe he can just, it's a mitosis.
So wait, but you read that as like a more positive ending now, is what you're saying, Joe?
Well, I still like my original thought on it.
Sure.
I think with the expanded content that they've done with that since then, it casts some doubt on it. And I don't remember specifically, but like I think that like Kitase or whoever has been asked sort of specifically about the read on it and has come back with something a little more optimistic than my initial read.
Okay. Quickly, you guys want to blast through just some music stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that sounds good.
It seems like the overwhelming winner was the Cosmo Canyon theme. The community
Good
really
theme.
enjoyed that one there. I like Hisito's theme more. I don't know if people just bundle that together.
Which one's that?
That's kind of like the slower, more piano-driven version of the Cosmo Canyon theme.
I like pianos.
And I like Cito. There we go. Let's see. The one above all says, I've said this multiple times in the Facebook group, but Genova Absolute is one of the most underrated songs in all of Final Fantasy. Wait in the booth. Do you have Genova Absolute there? So this is the fight before Sephiroth, which is interesting because I love the other Genova song, the one where it's like spelled out, which is the fights from the other Genova sequences, the music that plays. But this one is only played once at the end, and it's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Tom says Canyon, Cosmo Canyon, that is, and One Winged Angel on the battle theme aside, I think the ones that stand out the most to me, or I have the most nostalgia over, are Mako Reactor, Flowers Blooming in the Church, and Oppressed People. He also says, I think it's worth mentioning that Crisis Core also has a great soundtrack, especially Mako City. Chad writes in and says, definitely the song called Interrupted by Fireworks. Wade, you want to boot that one up? He says, it's one of those powerful songs in the soundtrack. And it's one that I don't think you think of too much, but it plays during the date sequence when you're seeing the
Oh yeah, I like this song.
going around
Yeah.
the tram.
It was great.
Yep.
It's beautiful. Nathan writes in and says, my favorite is you can hear the cry of the planet. Wade, you want to boot that baby up? I feel that it captures the hopeless feeling of the story perfectly. And you can hear the cry of the planet has such an eerie, melancholy feeling that matches the events of the City of Ancients so well.
Yeah, this is a great one.
Yeah, it's good. Lance Howard writes in and says, during your Disc 2 discussion, Final Fantasy IX was brought up. The scene mentioned with the song You're Not Alone sent shivers down my spine. That's probably my favorite song from all of Final Fantasy. But he really loves Genova, the other Genova song, which is Genova. I don't know. this classic one.
Oh yeah.
It's a tough one to pronounce and whatnot. The song from Fighting Genova right before Bizarro Sephiroth. He also loved the bombing mission from the opening, and Turk's theme is just a classic. We don't need to play it.
Turk's
Everybody
theme's good.
remembers the Turk's
That's
theme.
fun.
Yeah.
Mike Petrie writes in and says, thanks so much for the Game Club coverage of Final Fantasy VII. This is my favorite game of all time. I've really enjoyed playing along with you guys. I've always loved the Disc 1 overworld music. We played it a couple episodes ago during Game Club.
Oh, yeah.
It's everything I feel about the game. Everything I feel about that game wrapped into one 7-minute track. I'm a full-time professional musician, composer, and orchestrator, and I still look to the Final Fantasy VII overworld theme as my favorite video game music track. One that had tremendous influence on me as a guy who loves games and as a guy who makes music for a living. It's a high praise there.
Yeah.
Nathan writes in, says, Final Fantasy VII has a great all-around soundtrack. I think it's fair to say Uematsu is one of, if not the most influential composer of the game industry. Holding my thoughts in my heart is the field music from the original Final Fantasy VII demo, so it gets extra nostalgia points. Wade, do you have Holding My Thoughts in My Heart? Should be on there. Fun tidbit for Final Fantasy newcomers. Nobuo doesn't create brand new music for each installment, which I think is a stretch. He remixes tracks from early entries and keeps the rhythm. Random encounters and high wind music is easy to spot, but here's a few more examples, saying this has the same rhythm. The battle with the 4 friends from Final Fantasy IV, Fierce Battle from 6, Genova from 7, The Extreme from 8, Attack from 10, and then Dancing, Calacabrena from 4, The Wedding from 6, Waltz, Chocobo from 7, Waltz for the Moon from 8, yada, yada, yada.
Ooh.
For me, I was thinking about underrated tracks. Chocobo Farm, I think, is better than people talk about.
I was just
love
going
the
to bring
song.
that up, actually.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Wait, do you have the
Just now.
Chocobo Farm music there? There we go. I love it. It's peaceful. It's relaxing.
It is very peaceful.
You have to hear it so much when you're
and I
reading
heard
these
it
things.
a lot.
I like the there's sort of like an ethereal song that kind of plays. I think it plays when you're in the Mithril mines, or maybe it's when you're in the mountains. It's just that sort of like, I can't. It doesn't have a melody. It's
Sure.
it's a much more of a just sort of like ambient sort of thing. I like that song.
One that I can't find, and it's connected to Mount Nibel over there, is there's one track that stood out to me. It's when Tifa, in that flashback, is talking about her mom dying. She's going to go avenge her. And it's like a new version of Tifa's theme, where I can't find it because you try looking for like Tifa mom dying music, because it's only played that one time in the game, and everyone just pops up Tifa's theme, obviously.
Yeah, interesting.
But a song I really didn't appreciate and never really listened too much to outside of the game before was the Northern Crater music itself, which is called Judgment Day. Wade, do you have that one over there? It has like certain echoes of Eris's theme kind of worked in every once in a while. But I was listening to it and thinking about how much I liked it. And then I was thinking about why. And this part here, I realized like, oh, that sounds like the Lost World theme. That's probably why I enjoy it so much.
Really?
But it changes as it moves on. I appreciate it more this time around.
Yeah.
So my favorite Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. Ooh, maybe I like 8's soundtrack more than 7's. Joe, I know you're a 6 guy yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, no question. So overall thoughts. Chris Cochin, I'm sorry, I always botch your name. Final Fantasy VII does get backlash because of its popularity. People who have short memories or weren't old enough back when this game was released could never understand how different the landscape of games was back then, and the effect that 7 had on RPGs, cinematic games, and just long games in general. Final Fantasy VII was a true one-of-a-kind pioneer, and it still holds up as a masterpiece despite its rust. Also, if 3 times speed was a religion, I would build a church to pray to it weekly.
Oh, man.
It's really crazy going from this game to like Stardew Valley, because I'm so used to just like tapping in that stick and getting that sweet 3 times.
I would like 3 times speed in more games.
Every game should
Every
be sped
game.
up by 3 times, or at least give us the option. Hello, G.I. Cruz, says Tom. Most of the theories Joe was talking about, I agreed. And I like how in-depth he is with his knowledge. There we go.
Oh.
Tom, #1 fan, Joe.
Thanks.
Everybody likes to bash on 7 and hate Cloud for being such an emo wimp. But listening to you guys talking about the game and how well planned out it is, how well developed Cloud's arc is, makes me laugh at those people. Cloud is not just an emo
their
kid.
face, yeah.
His tragic past and tough present makes him much deeper of a character.
He's not emo until like the extra stuff, like you play the other games and watch the movie and whatnot.
Yeah.
Though, as we touched on earlier, the game sort of does put the burden on you to fill in some of those gaps yourself, to sort of fill that with meaning,
Right.
rather than explicitly spelling it out.
Also, he's saying people criticize 7. I guess I haven't
I think there's just like there's a certain backlash. I always feel it specifically from like the old school Final Fantasy fans. Maybe I'm just talking about Dan Tack here, but the people are like, "Oh, it's no 4, it's no 6. You're stupid if you don't think 9's the best." It's just I think 7 gets so much praise that naturally people see it as a lightning rod.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my perception of it anyway. Is that like in general, I think 7 is widely regarded. Like I don't personally agree, but like from the wider population, I think that 7 is perceived to be the best, the most popular, the most influential.
I think Square sees it that way.
And yeah, so like whenever, I mean, yeah, like Ben said, it's a lightning rod. Whenever something gets that much praise and has that much expectation put on it, there are people who are definitely eager to like play it and be
Fight
like,
against it.
well, yeah, to be like, I don't agree with that, which you're fine to not agree with it. I don't agree with it, but you can't deny. I think it's hard to deny that this is like an important and like well-crafted for its time and influential game.
Right. Although Brendan Smith writes in and says, I think the game has a lot of problems. I don't think the characters are particularly well developed by modern standards.
Well, Tifa is.
The writing is awkward at best. The plot really is needlessly convoluted at times. Playing it without a guide can be a directionless nightmare at times. So a lot of the criticisms I went in were affirmed for me, at least to some degree, but playing a big chunk of it for myself again has reminded me of what the game did right and why it can still be so fun. Raf, who has written in a lot, says, Dear GI Show, what a bizarre adventure 7 has been. After a little bit of grinding, I crawled through the dungeon, beat Sephiroth, and watched a vocalless cutscene that ended a bit ambiguously. I guess it's to be expected for a 19-year-old game. Overall, I stand by my beliefs that the best thing the game has going for it are the soundtrack, gameplay, and characters, especially that soundtrack. Still, I leave the game with a feeling of okayness. It's got plenty good, but plenty not so good. I'm sure I would have been blown away all those years ago when I was 4, but I didn't own a PS1 and only knew about the game from those who worshipped it. You wouldn't have beat this game at 4, by the way.
Yeah, no, it might have been too hard.
Yeah, he says it's nice that the recent ports made the game more tolerable. In conclusion, I give the game a solid 7. P.S. Thank you. Thank you and the Game Club for encouraging me to beat the game. After playing it on and off for so long, I didn't think I'd ever see it through to completion. But like they say, quote, there ain't no getting off of this train we're on. So
Well,
I'm glad we
congrats.
dragged it through. There are a lot of people that are like,
Yeah. Congrats to everyone who finished it too. I mean,
Yeah.
like it is a long haul. So
It was
we
a fun
appreciate
ride.
that. Everybody that wrote in, there were a surprising amount of people that said like, I always wanted to finish it, and this kind of gave me the momentum to finally do it. And so I'm glad we could introduce a classic to more people, and I hope you learned something. But as Raph says, till next time, the question is there going to be a next time for Game Club?
No, there's not.
All right, well, that's it for Game Informer. Yeah, so we've talked about it a lot. People wrote in, have a lot of thoughts. People want us to do another RPG because it can be broken up into multiple episodes. People say Deus Ex, Persona 3, a lot of Xenogears fans.
whoa.
Mass Effect 1, Catherine, Nick from Utah wrote in just to say Diablo 2. Do Diablo 2 next. Chris Cochin has the correct answer where he just says bully. Jeff Wangdang James says KOTOR, Bastion, other ones. Paul Swears has a great one. I can't imagine we wouldn't want to do this at some point. Metal Gear Solid 2 would be
That's a really good one.
Oh yeah.
Even the first one too would be really good.
Yeah.
Tony Dungan says Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Bastion, Super Metroid, Deadly Premonition. I think we should have a variety of games and ages for the selections. The classics are important, but newer games are just as important for studying, which is a good note to segue into. Joe, what are your thoughts on this versus new versus old?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you look at, a lot of the content we do, like replay and super replay are a lot focused on the old stuff. And that's not to say we don't want to do old stuff on the Game Club. I think there's definitely a place for that, and we'll continue to do that in the future. But yeah, from our conversations, we were thinking that it'd be fun to do something that is like not only recent, but basically like brand new.
Hot off the presses.
Yeah.
So what we're leaning towards is something that nobody recommended. And to be fair, we had a meeting about this yesterday, and I didn't think of it going in, and then somehow it came up, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good one. We want it to be more accessible than 7, want it to be shorter than 7. So we're thinking of taking a little bit of a break, but picking it back up, Game Club that is, say around May 10th when Uncharted 4 comes out.
Dun 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 dun.
It's not Xenogears, I'm sorry.
Sorry. But the idea is to do, like people said, a wide breadth of games.
Yeah.
That includes new games and it also includes old games. So it doesn't mean like, oh, we're all new games now. Like we will do classics again. We'll do RPGs again. But we want to do a wide breadth of games, which might someday include indie games and other types of games.
Yeah, there's a ton of great ideas in there. I love everyone's suggestions. Uncharted 4, sorry it's a console exclusive. That makes us feel bad. I mean, it's a popular console, so that's a little bit better. But I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to do such a story-based game. I'm not the biggest Uncharted fan in the world, but I think there's going to be a lot to talk about.
Well, especially since it's wrapping up that series essentially.
Right.
Also, that
Could talk about.
I mean, there is a way. It's not like Uncharted 2 where you just sort of crack your knuckles at the end and be like, "Well, I wonder what they've got next."
What kind of wacky adventures? Also, it's not going to be the three of us. I mean, it very well could be, but I think more people are interested in this. Actually, it'd be kind of fun just to like, whoever wants to get like 10 people at this table.
Oh my gosh.
Because everyone in the office is going to be playing through it, right?
That's true. We'll have a wide swath of people to choose from.
Yeah, every episode will be 6 hours long.
But at any, in case you're particularly annoyed by me or Ben Reeves or Ben Hansen, we're
probably not me, but yeah.
Right, naturally. So the point
it's not just us three for Game Club forever for the foreseeable future.
But it is still you guys. You are a huge part of it. I'm looking directly at Joe and Wade. No, I'm talking about the community. They have been fantastic through this entire experience, sending in a ton of emails to podcast@gameformer.com. So keep that coming. And so the plan is Uncharted 4 comes out May 10th. We want to give people some time to buy it and play it. So the next episode of Game Club will be May 26th.
And should we say we are still thinking about doing multiple episodes, but since we haven't played the game yet, we kind of don't know where that break is.
We'll see how it'll divide up.
We will update you as
but it'll be at least 2 episodes.
Yeah, 2 or 3, 4 if it's a massive game. We don't really know. Send your feedback into podcast@gameformer.com. Let us know how many episodes you want. I love going nitty gritty. I love to see 3, but who knows? It might be a clean split at 2. When Drake dies and then the rest of the story.
Right. When you play as Elena, that makes sense.
That whole thing. All right. But hey, Final Fantasy VII.
Hey,
everybody.
Thanks for playing, everybody.
Mission accomplished.
You did it. You did it.
I still have pages and pages of notes that we haven't talked about. There's so much more to go through. So maybe there'll be some bonus stuff in the future. Who can
Special
say?
edition podcast, more Final Fantasy VII.
I promise Final Fantasy VII will come up again on this podcast at some point. But that's it for this episode of the Game Informer Show. Thank you so much for watching or listening or writing in, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And be sure to tune in next week. Actually, on Monday, it's going to be the Gears of War Special Edition. And then on Thursday, another regular episode. So tune in for that, everybody. Thanks for tuning in now. Bye.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.